All right, it doesn't appear there's anyone waiting to come into the remote courtroom. And at this time, we will go on the record. We do have a court reporter present, and we're here on the case of Cayla Griffin versus Albanese Enterprise, Inc., DBA Paradise. The case number is 2019 CA 1555. It's my understanding that all 13 of our jurors in this jury panel did arrive on time at approximately 8:30 this morning, and they are in the remote jury assembly room reviewing the PowerPoint presentation part 1, which is a presentation by our remote bailiffs for Zoom skills that they will need to have in order to participate in jury selection. And the jurors obviously will be appearing remotely by Zoom, and so they need to have certain skills to be able to participate in jury selection. They're also having their identification confirmed by Mr. Corrigan, our deputy clerk, in order to be able to swear them in when they come into the courtroom. And so at this time, there are a few housekeeping matters we can go ahead and address while we're waiting on the jurors to finish the preliminary matters in the assembly room. Mr. Kachurgis is here for the record, along with his client, Ms. Griffin. And we also have the special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, present, along with Mr. Smith, our remote trial bailiff. Mr. Smith, is there, I assume there's no one waiting in the waiting room to come into the remote courtroom. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And I assume that the CVN production team is, that there's no issues from their end as well. Is that correct?
None that I have heard, Your Honor. I believe they're good to go.
All right. And Mr. Corrigan, you're present here in court as our deputy clerk. And Mr. Corrigan, have you checked all the identifications of the jurors?
I have, Your Honor.
All right. Very good. Thank you. And Mr. Kachurgis, it looks like that everything's working fine from a technology standpoint this morning. I can see you and hear you. Any issues from your end, Mr. Kachurgis, from a technology standpoint?
No, Your Honor, and I had the pleasure of talking with a couple of the court's IT people this morning to try to ensure that we don't have any hiccups today.
And can you see me and hear me fine so far this morning?
I can, Your Honor.
And Ms. Griffin, the same question of you. I know you're appearing remotely as well. Any technology problems from your end, Ms. Griffin?
No, everything seems to be working fine.
Okay, can you see me and hear me okay this morning?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. If at any time, Mr. Kachurgis or Ms. Griffin, you all have problems, same rules apply to you all as apply to the jurors, please let us know. Raise your hands, give us some type of signal that you need help, and I'm sure we can find a way to get help to you as quickly as possible. All right, I see Mr. Muse has appeared into the remote courtroom for the record. And Mr. Muse, have all the jurors had their identification confirmed by Mr. Corrigan, and have they completed watching the PowerPoint presentation part 1 for Zoom skills that they will need to participate in jury selection remotely today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are there any remaining issues we have to address as it concerns our remote jurors before we bring them into the courtroom?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may bring all of our remote jurors into the courtroom, all 13 of them. All right, Mr. Muse, are all 13 of our remote prospective jurors present and accounted for?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may call the court to order.
The Remote Circuit Court Division CVE NN4 Duval County in the state of Florida is now in session. The Honorable Bruce Anderson is presiding remotely. Except for the remote jurors and the electronic devices they are using to participate in this court session and the attorneys and their assistants, everyone please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices at this time. The attorneys and their assistants should have their cell phones and electronic devices silenced or on vibrate mode. The use of cell phone cameras or other electronic devices to take photographs or make video or audio recordings of these proceedings of any kind is absolutely prohibited. However, those of you in the remote gallery may use your electronic devices for purposes other than photograph or making any video or audio recordings of these proceedings while remote court is in session. Credentials representatives of the media who have obtained prior approval from the court may use cell phones, cameras, laptops, iPads, and any tablets and other electronic devices, and they may be used for photographic and or recording purposes. There will be no talking while remote court is in session unless your microphone is muted. Except for the attorneys, everyone in the remote courtroom, including the remote jurors, should have their microphones muted unless called upon to speak or instructed to unmute their microphones.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the remote jury panel. My name is Judge Bruce Anderson. I'll be the judge presiding over this remote jury selection as well as the remote trial. I can't tell you how happy I am this morning to be able to say good morning to a jury panel. I had that privilege and that pleasure yesterday with 2 jury panels, and I was so happy to do that because I haven't seen jurors since the end of February. We haven't had a jury trial here. I haven't had a jury trial here since the end of February. And one of my favorite parts of my job as a judge, and it was one of my favorite parts of my job as a trial lawyer before I became a judge, was meeting jurors and working with jurors and going through the process of trying a case with jurors. And so it's been one of the real problems for me dealing with COVID the past couple of months from the courthouse perspective, because I haven't seen any jurors. So it's really a pleasure to see all of your bright, happy, shining, smiling faces this morning. And I hope you're as excited as I am to go through this process today. It's also a historical process. You are making history today. You're part of the very first jury panels to ever go through a totally remote jury trial from beginning to end, from jury selection through verdict. So you're making history today. So there's many reasons to be happy. I'd like to welcome you to the remote Civil Division CVE of the Circuit Court, 4th Judicial Circuit in and for Duval County, Florida. I want to start out first of all by thanking you on behalf of all of my colleagues here in the 4th Judicial Circuit for being here today and offering to serve as a remote juror. The judges in this circuit realize that service on a jury, whether it's remote or in person, is a sacrifice, and it can interfere with your daily responsibilities at work and at home. However, service on a remote jury does afford you an opportunity to be part of the administration of justice, where the rights and liberties of your fellow citizens in your community are determined and protected. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is confirm who each of you are. I'm going to ask some very routine technology questions that will help us as we move forward today. So when I call your name, I'm going to go in order, chronological order based upon your juror number. I'm going to need you to unmute your microphone when I call on you, and then I'm going to ask you the question. So I'll start first of all with juror number 62, Mr. Gill. Good morning, Mr. Gill.
Good morning.
And you were John Gill, is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Gill, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, I can.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, I can.
What device are you using to participate today?
A laptop.
Right. Thank you, sir. That takes us to juror number 63. Is it Miss Meyer or Mayer? Miss Mayer, you can unmute your microphone. Should be in the, there you go. Good morning, Miss Mayer.
Good morning.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Correct, Mayor?
Okay. Miss Mayer, your full name is Victoria Mayer, is that correct?
Victoria Ann Mayor?
Okay, very good. Can you hear me this morning?
Yes, I can.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what device are you using to participate today?
An iPad?
All right, very good. Thank you. That takes us to juror number 64, Miss Pugh. Good morning, Miss Pugh. You can unmute your microphone. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Doing well.
Good. You are Elizabeth Pugh, is that correct?
That is correct.
Miss Pugh, can you hear me this morning?
Yes.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes.
What device are you using to participate today?
I'm using a laptop.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Miss Pugh. That takes us to juror number 65, Miss Quinones.
Quinones?
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Alyssa Quinones.
Okay, thank you. And your first name, is it Alyssa?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you hear me this morning?
Yes.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes.
What device are you using to participate today?
A laptop?
Right, thank you. That takes us to juror number 66, Mr. Reed.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Doing good.
All right. Mr. Reed, you are Dustin Reed, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And can you hear me this morning?
Yes.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes.
What type of device are you using this morning to participate?
Laptop computer.
All right, great. That takes us to juror number 67, Mr. Shoup. Good morning, Mr. Shoup.
Good morning, Your Honor.
And you are Craig Shoup, is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Shoup, can you hear me this morning?
I can.
Can you see me this morning?
I can.
What type of device are you using to participate today?
I'm using a laptop.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shoup. That takes us to juror number 68, Ms. Soto.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Soto, good morning.
Good morning.
And you are, is it Wilma Esther Soto?
Correct.
All right, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, sir.
What device are you using to participate today?
I'm using a laptop.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to juror number 69, Ms. Spanos. Good morning, Ms. Spanos.
Good morning.
And Ms. Spanos, your first name, is it Micheline?
Michaeline.
Michaeline.
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Spanos, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, I can.
What device are you using to participate today?
A laptop.
All right, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That takes us to juror number 70, Ms. Tomlinson.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Tomlinson. How are you doing?
Just fine.
All right, you are, is it Renee Ann Tomlinson?
Yes, it is.
All right, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, I can.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes.
What type of device are you using to participate today?
Laptop.
All right, very good. That takes us to juror number 71, Ms. Allen. Good morning, Ms. Allen.
Good morning.
Ms. Allen, you are Carol Ann Allen, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Allen, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, sir.
What type of device are you using to participate today?
iPad.
All right, very good. That takes us to juror number 72, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir.
All right, good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Smith, can you hear me? Or you are, Mr. Smith, you're Danny Harry Smith, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Mr. Smith, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, sir.
What type of device are you using to participate today?
A desktop.
All right, very good. That takes us to juror number 73, Ms. Capps. Good morning, Ms. Capps. Ms. Capps, you're still muted. I make that mistake all the Ms. Capps, I make that mistake all the time when I'm having hearings and other matters, and I do that. So don't worry. So Ms. Capps, you are you're Stacy Sellers Capps, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Capps, can you hear me this morning?
Yes.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes.
What type of device are you using to participate today?
Desktop.
All right, very good. Thank you. And last but not least, Ms. Davis, juror number 75. Ms. Davis, good morning.
Good morning.
You are Carolyn Davis, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you hear me this morning?
I can.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, I can.
All right, what type of device are you using to participate today?
Have a laptop.
All right, very good. I believe I've covered all of you, jurors 62 through 75, and you all have done a fantastic job of responding to my questions, so we're off to a good start. I do want to remind you that if at any time during this remote jury selection or during the remote jury trial itself, you're having trouble hearing what the court is saying or what anyone else is saying or seeing myself or anyone else or anything that should be on your screen, please raise your hand. You can either raise your physical hand, or you can raise your Zoom hand, or if that doesn't work or you feel like that we're not able to see you, you can just give us an audible warning that you are having difficulties, and we'll stop where we are to get everything squared away. We don't want you to go through this process today and not be able to see us, or us not be able to see or hear you. You should have received several emails before your appearance today from our remote bailiffs. You should have been provided in those emails a contact cell phone number to use if you do have tech problems and can't get our attention. Did all of you receive a contact cell phone number for our remote bailiffs to use if there's an emergency? All right, I need a verbal response from everyone so you can unmute your microphones.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
there's,
Yes.
Yes.
all right, very good. So if there's anyone who did not receive that cell phone number, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that all of our jurors did receive that cell phone number. The reason why that's so important is there could be a technology glitch or a problem and you're unable to communicate with us by Zoom. You feel like that everything's totally gone off the screen and you need help right away, and you can use that cell phone number to get our bailiff's attention. I do also want to say that because you are among the first potential jurors to participate in a remote jury selection in the 4th Judicial Circuit, there may be some technical problems or delays that we don't ordinarily see during an in-person jury selection. Yesterday morning, we had some delays, a few delays because of technology issues. And yesterday afternoon, we had a big lightning storm, flash of lightning, thunder and all of that, and the Zoom screen went down for me here in the courtroom. We lost probably about 5 or 10 minutes with that. And then we had some, during the course of the day with both jury panels, we had some jurors that had difficulties during the process. That's to be expected. So I want to thank you in advance for your patience and understanding as we work through the remote jury selection process here this morning. I do have some very basic ground rules that I need to share with you. And these are ground rules that we've developed. This isn't the first time that we've done, this is the first time we've done a real remote civil jury trial here at the Duval County Courthouse. But in preparing for these proceedings, myself and some volunteer lawyers and our court technology officers, we've done several practice trials with volunteers. And what we learned during those practice trials, we're applying here. And so there's 10 rules that we've developed that I'm going to be sharing with you here this morning that are really specific to remote civil jury trials. These aren't things that we would say in an in-person jury trial where you were to come to the Duval County Courthouse. So I need you to listen very closely to these rules. I don't have them memorized. I will have to read them to you, so please listen closely. Rule number 1, you must treat every court session the same way you would if you were physically present at the Duval County Courthouse for jury duty. The very same way you would if you were called here for jury duty and walked into the building itself and made your way into one of the courtrooms and you were seated in the gallery, and you would have to put away your devices, put away anything that distracts you, put your books and newspapers and magazines away, and just focus on what's going on in here. So please treat this the same way you would if you were in the Duval County Courthouse. Number 2, do not turn off your video while court is in session. We all need to be able to see each other. I'm not going to turn off my video. You're not going to turn off your video. So we have to be able to see each other. Number 3, do not get up and leave your Zoom meeting room while court is in session. So what that means is don't get so comfortable with this process here today that you feel like you can just get up and walk away, get up and take a comfort break or get something to drink or do something, put some clothes in the dryer, something like that. Please don't feel that comfortable that you can get up and walk away. If a sudden emergency does arise at your home or wherever you're doing this from today, please let us know so we can stop the proceeding. So if something really urgent happens and out of your control, just let us know and we'll stop everything so you can address it. Number 4, please focus on the screen and the audio source of the device from which you're participating in this remote court session. So don't be looking at you shouldn't have the television on, you shouldn't have radio on, there shouldn't be anything that distracts your attention away from these proceedings. So the screen you're using on your device and whatever speaker you're using to provide you with audio, that's where your focus should be. Number 5, there should be no other sights or sounds competing for your attention. So again, television, radio, that should all be turned off. If you've got other devices you're not using, those should be powered off as well. Number 6, while remote court is in session, you cannot speak to anyone else in person or by any electronic device, whether it's someone in your home, a family member, a coworker, or an employee or a co-employee. You can't do any of that while you're in this remote court session. So that means that you can't be having a conversation or communicating with people in your household, people at your office, neighbors, friends, anyone like that. So that means both verbally as well as digitally. So there shouldn't be anything distracting you from these proceedings. Same way it would be if you were in this actual physical courthouse. You can't sit there in the gallery and text message your friends, family, coworkers, and so forth. We need all your focus on what's going on here. If there are other persons in your home or place of business or wherever you're doing this from, and they need to communicate with you urgently, there's an emergency, there's a fire in the household, or your kids are having a disagreement and it's getting loud and it sounds like someone's fighting or they're in a fight, and you guys got to stop things right away, let us know and we'll immediately stop the proceedings if there's an emergency. Otherwise, we really need you to be engaged with us. Number 7, you may have noticed already, if you haven't used Zoom before, or I guess if you have used it before, you probably already figured it out, but if today's your first day using Zoom, you probably realize that there is a chat message feature on Zoom where you can actually send chat messages to other participants in a meeting. This is not a meeting, it is a court session, and so you cannot send messages to the other participants. Please don't send messages to your fellow jurors, don't send messages to the court, don't send messages to the attorney or the plaintiff or any of the witnesses. The only ones that you can send messages to would be the remote bailiffs who you've already met and our remote special magistrate, Ms. Hodak. So that means no messages at all to anyone else. And as it concerns chat messages to the remote bailiffs and the special magistrate, the only time you should be sending any messages to them when court is in session is if you have a technology problem or something urgent has come up and you need to get their attention. Otherwise, any other messages you might send to the bailiff or the special magistrate would be sent when court is not in session, when we're in recess. So if you have some question about schedule or something routine and ordinary, wait till court is out of session to send that message when you're in recess. And why do we have those rules in effect? Because we don't want you looking at your keyboard, and we don't want you looking at another part of your screen to chat messages like you would be in an ordinary computer, because we want your focus on us and what's being said here. We don't want your attention divided. The special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, and our remote bailiffs also have my permission to send chat messages to you within the limits of their duties and responsibilities. As it concerns your fellow jurors, once again, please don't send chat messages to your fellow jurors at any point, whether court's in session or in recess. When you're in recess, let's say we have a recess, and a recess might occur if I have to go to a remote sidebar. Let's say I have to talk to one of you separately from the other jurors at the remote sidebar where I'm in a different location. You can't hear or see what we're doing. You all will be in recess. Yesterday, we took a 5-minute or 10-minute recess during the course of the proceedings. You all will still be on in your Zoom platform. And if you choose to, you can always talk to each other verbally on the Zoom platform. Even though you're not in the same room, you can talk about any subject in the world, the Jaguars, the weather, vacation plans, anything at all that you want to talk about, except for this case where the people or places involved in this case. But I just don't want you to chat message each other. Number 8, many of you have cell phones, tablets, laptops, or other electronic devices, including Apple Watches or other types of watches that can send and receive messages and data with you here in the remote courtroom. During this jury selection, any such electronic devices not being used by you to participate in this remote jury selection must be powered off. So that means turned off, not airplane mode, silent, or vibrate. You can't have those devices in the remote courtroom once the jury selection and trial begin. During this court session today, if we do go into a recess for some reason, or we're in a point where I'm seeing the lawyer and one of you at sidebar, I'm just seeing the lawyer at sidebar, and for any reason I'd go to recess and there's 5 minutes or 10 minutes when you're in recess, you can use those devices, you can power them back up and you can use them, but you can't do any research about this case or the people or places involved in this case. You can't use those devices to talk to anyone about what we're doing in here, but certainly you can visit whatever sites you normally go to. Also, please do not take any photographs, video recordings, or audio recordings of these proceedings or your fellow jurors. So you shouldn't be taking photographs of each other. You shouldn't be taking photographs of the screen that you're on. Please don't do that at all. At the end of the case, if you do get chosen to be on this jury, at the end of the case while you're deliberating, you must not communicate with anyone outside the jury room. If someone needs to contact you in an emergency, whether that's today or in trial, if you're chosen to serve in this case, a contact phone number has already been provided to you. That's that cell phone number that you were provided. That's the number you can give to your family and friends and coworkers and employer. If there's an emergency, they can send a text message or call the remote bailiffs to let them know, and they'll let me know, and I'll get your attention. We'll take a recess and deal with it. Number 9. As it concerns whatever electronic device you're using to participate in this remote jury selection day, whether I think some of you had desktops, some of you had laptops, some of you had iPads, no matter what device you're using to participate today, I need you to log out of and turn off anything that might distract your attention on your screen. All of us have the ability to take our screen and split it up into different windows and different tasks that are going on. I only want you to have on your screen these proceedings. I don't want you to have email up, social media, Instagram, any type of messaging services, any other websites. I don't want anything else up at all. I don't want a project for that you're working on, like a Word document or something that you're working on typing. I don't want any type of task on your screen going on at this time. I only want these proceedings on your screen. I really need you to abide by that because we all need your undivided attention. Yesterday, we had a young man in one of our panels who had a pressing project that was due at college, and he was honest enough with me to say that he had a split screen going on and he felt like he couldn't focus on this trial because he had so many things going on at school and so many deadlines. He could not give his undivided attention to this case, and I excused him for hardship. And he was very honest and candid about that. So I want you to get all that off the screen now if you haven't already done so. We definitely need your undivided attention. Last but not least, number 10, because of the historic nature of how this trial is being conducted remotely, there may be some media and news coverage of this jury selection and trial. I can already tell you now that there are members of the media that are watching this trial. There were members of the media watching the trial yesterday. There is news coverage of these proceedings in this remote trial. And we also have Courtroom View Network, which is known by as CVN, broadcasting this trial for the public to watch for free, just as you would be able to do in an in-person jury trial if you walked in off the street, came into the courthouse, and sat down in the gallery to watch a trial going on in the courthouse. We have the sunshine laws that apply to government functions and government offices, and the sunshine laws apply to the courthouse as well and to our proceedings. So we're offering the public a chance to see these proceedings remotely, just as they would be able to come into the courthouse. That's why we're offering that through CVN. But what that means for you is that I don't want you going and looking at news coverage of this remote trial. I don't want you to go to Courtroom View Network's website to watch the free broadcast of these proceedings because you're on this jury. I don't want you to be looking at any coverage of this case or these proceedings during the time period that you're serving as a juror. Once you're discharged, once your service is complete, then you can go back and look on the internet and look at all the different news stories about this case and about these remote proceedings. You can go back and watch the Courtroom View Network broadcast. It's all saved on their website. You can watch the entire thing from beginning to end, and you can watch it to your heart's content. But for now, I'm ordering you not to look at any news coverage of this case or these proceedings until after you're discharged. We're now at the part of the case where you'll be taking an oath to serve as a juror in this case. In this jury selection from your panel, as well as the 2 panels yesterday and the panel that will follow your panel here later today, Mr. Kachurgis, on behalf of the plaintiff, will be selecting 8 of you to serve on our trial jury to try this case. Before we begin, our remote deputy clerk, Mr. Corrigan, will administer the oath to all of the prospective remote jurors. And the oath simply requires you to answer all of our questions during this jury selection truthfully and completely. Before administering the oath, I will ask our remote deputy trial clerk, Mr. Corrigan, to confirm for the record that by the display of each prospective juror's photo identification, that each one was in fact summoned for remote jury duty and is duly qualified to serve by their written responses to Part B of their summons submitted in advance of their appearance today. Mr. Corrigan, can you confirm that?
Your Honor, for the record, I can confirm that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the prospective jury panel needs you to unmute your microphones, and Mr. Corrigan will administer the oath.
Please raise your right hand. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will answer truthfully all questions asked of you as prospective jurors, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Corrigan. Ladies and gentlemen, the prospective jury panel, you can leave your microphones unmuted because I do have a question to ask of you that's going to require verbal response. Ms. Spanos, you got your hand down. Okay, good. So I need to ask you a question verbally. I need you to respond to me verbally. So before today's proceedings, you would have received several emails from our remote bailiffs. And so this is a pilot program. There's things that we're learning from this and things that the Florida Supreme Court's learning from this that are going to help us going forward. So I'm asking you this not in a negative way, but really in a positive way to get feedback from you. So did everyone notice that in one of the emails you received that would have had your questionnaire that you filled out attached to it, or the link to the questionnaire for you to fill out that was part of the email? There were also links to 2 videos. One that was a clerk of court welcome video that Mr. Corrigan appeared on, and the other was a video from the Florida Supreme Court. Did all of you see those 2 video links and watch the videos?
Yes.
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 Very good. Did anyone here not watch them or have difficulty watching them?
I didn't watch them. I'm going to be
Okay.
honest. I didn't even notice it till this morning.
Well, that's very helpful to us, Ms. Spanos. Do you feel like that there was something in that email that could have been done differently to make them more visible or more easy to recognize?
Yeah, I think it was in the middle of it. And since I was so busy at work all week and I had other things going on, that I didn't notice it till this morning because I didn't have time to go on it till this morning. So that I got up early to try to, get online and do everything. So, and it was too late by then.
Okay.
So,
Well, Ms. Spanos, do you feel like that if the links to the video had been in a different location in the email, you would have noticed it easier, or maybe been more urgent about watching?
maybe right around at the very bottom, closer to where, I don't know, it was just up further, and I scanned through it, but I don't know, maybe towards the bottom a little bit more. It would help be more helpful.
Well, your feedback is very valuable to us, so we appreciate you giving us that feedback.
I'm
And
so sorry I didn't watch it.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do now then is the Florida Supreme Court video. I know all of you, or all but Ms. Spanos, have seen it, but even if Ms. Spanos has seen it as well, I would still show the Florida Supreme Court video because I think it's so important and I think it sets the right tone for our proceedings today. So all of you can mute your microphones. I am going to ask our remote trial bailiff to go ahead and queue up the Florida Supreme Court video, and you'll see that on a share screen on the monitor.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to your judicial system. And I am Fred Lewis. I have the privilege of serving you as your Chief Justice. And while I'm in Tallahassee, all of us are vitally concerned at what's happening in the local community today, as you have reported for jury duty. And make no mistake, I use the phrase your judicial system because this system does belong to you. It will not operate without you, and it exists solely to serve you. It does not exist to serve the judges. It does not exist to serve those who work within the building, but it exists only to resolve disputes between our government and the citizens, between citizens, and involving businesses when those disputes cannot be otherwise resolved. Now, I know all of you have come here this morning with different anticipations and from different settings and from different circumstances, and we understand and recognize that. And we understand the sacrifice that many of you have had to make to be here this morning. But I hope you truly understand that by your being here, whether you serve on a jury or not, that it is extremely, extremely important that you be here, because so many cases will be resolved in other parts of this building while you're sitting here waiting, because those individuals know that a fair-minded group of individuals are here ready and prepared to hear the evidence and make a decision. I think you need to understand that the reason you are here is that we trust you, the citizens of the state trust you, I trust you as a fair-minded group of individuals willing to take time from your day-to-day activities to participate in this democracy and make decisions for the government on the only opportunity that you will ever have. I know that it may have taken you away from some other things that may be important to you, but I cannot overstress to you how important it is that you're here today, that you're participating, and that you believe in this great democracy. As I was riding to work this morning, I came in behind a van that said, "Freedom is not free, just ask any soldier." I think we need only ask also any juror. Liberty and freedom is not free. We will not remain a free people without the jury system, and you're part of that system, and you're making this happen. Thank you very much for being here.
In thinking about, well, before I go to that, let me ask you all the same question I asked at the beginning. So I need you to unmute your microphones. Now that we've come back from the video, we had a technology glitch, a little glitch yesterday after we did the video. So I'm going to ask you this question, make sure we don't have any glitches this morning. Can all of you see me and hear me having come back from that video?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, very good then. All right, you can go ahead and mute your microphones. In thinking about today's jury selection and the historic nature of these proceedings yesterday and today, the remote jury selection, I start, and the way that I told you earlier this morning that I've missed seeing jurors and having jury selections here in the courthouse and how much that affected me. I came back to a memory in thinking about the past few months about how important your service is as you've answered your call to jury duty. A memory came back to me, to my mind, from about 5 years ago, before I became a judge. It was December, and it was the end of a very complex 4-week civil jury trial, way before we ever knew what COVID was, way before we ever knew about social distancing and wearing masks all over the place, way before all that happened. It was a 4-week complex civil jury trial during the holiday season. Had all the surrounding stresses and the time demands of the holiday season. I was one of several trial attorneys that were trying the case. We got to the end of the trial, and when he was discharged from his jury service, all of his duties were complete. The middle-aged man who has served his community in the military and as a firefighter began to tear up. And I was thinking, well, that must be tears of happiness that he's finally done. He can get on with his holiday plans. And he asked the judge if he could address all of us. And the judge allowed him to speak to all of us. So he spoke to the judge and all the attorneys who had tried the case. He could tell he was emotional. His voice was trembling, and he was tearing up a little bit. And he told us that it was an honor and a privilege to serve on the jury. He compared the sounds of freedom that he had heard in the military, the sounds of jets roaring and guns blasting, to the sounds of the courtroom during a trial. The testimony, the objections, the instructions from the court's rulings on objections. And he hoped that the sounds of freedom that he heard in the courtroom would never end. Since the COVID-19 crisis began in the middle of March, the Duval County Courthouse has been very, very quiet. There's been very limited public access. We as judges have been working on and doing all our hearings and non-jury trials by Zoom, which is a platform we're using here today. We've been using telephone conferences and telephone hearings and Zoom hearings. We're doing the best we can with the cooperation, the hard work of the attorneys, the court personnel in the clerk's office to follow the Florida Supreme Court's orders to keep our cases moving within the limits of technology. But despite all of our hard work as it concerns civil jury trials, the sounds of freedom that come from our courtrooms in those civil jury trials have been silenced by the COVID-19 crisis since the middle of March. You each received a summons for your remote jury duty. It may not look like an invitation, but it really is an invitation for each one of you to participate in this great American experiment of self-government that has been conducted for over 244 years. You may be sitting there in front of your screen thinking, why me? Why am I here? Why are we doing this by Zoom? I could be doing other things today. But the answer to that question of why me is found at the beginning of the US Constitution. The preamble to the Constitution begins with the phrase, "We the people." That phrase, "we the people," are three simple words, "we the people." But to understand how powerful that phrase, "we the people," is, you have to read it in the context of the preamble to the Constitution. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Powerful words, we the people. We establish a system of government in which we the people are sovereign. In order for our government to function, the people individually are required to participate in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. A quick review of the United States Constitution reveals other areas besides jury duty where individuals can participate in government, such as the right to vote, the right to assemble together for peaceful purposes, whether that be for church, for work, for peaceful protest. And then there's the obvious one of military service. Citizens like you participating in government make our Constitution come to life. And when I use that term, Constitution coming to life, I'm not trying to delve into that legal scholar debate about whether the Constitution is a living, breathing document or whether we should be reading it as a textualist would, strict construction. I'm not getting into that debate. What I really mean by that, the Constitution comes to life when individuals participate in government, because the great words I just read to you in that preamble to the Constitution become great acts of service and sacrifice when you participate. Without your participation as individual United States citizens, our Constitution is reduced to just mere words on paper, nothing more. To sum it all up, each one of you were summoned here to participate in remote jury duty because you are the source of constitutional power. Our court system does not function and will not properly work without you, the jurors, in order to resolve disputes. Each of you are making history today. You are each restoring the sound of freedom to the Duval County Courthouse by your remote appearance today. You are making history today because you're part of the very first totally remote civil jury trial, totally remote from jury selection to verdict. None of you will ever come to the courthouse during this trial. You will stay at home or at your office or wherever you're choosing to participate in this proceeding from. The lawyers will not be in the courthouse. The witnesses will not be in the courthouse. The court reporter will not be in the courthouse. The trial clerk and the remote bailiffs will be in completely different areas of the courthouse. The remote special magistrate will not be in the courthouse. I'm alone here in this courtroom, in the physical courtroom 601, the Duval County Courthouse. There's only one other person in this courtroom with me, and that is Mr. Ashley, who is a court technology officer. That's the only persons that are here in the physical courtroom 601 that I'm in right now. That's not a virtual background behind me. That's the real background from courtroom 601. If you are selected to serve as one of our 8 remote trial jurors, your verdict will be binding in this case, even though you will never physically come to the courthouse. With all that being said, I now need to ask you some questions about whether your service in this case would be a hardship if you're selected to serve as one of our 8 remote jurors to try this case. I have reviewed your responses to the hardship questions that were found in your questionnaire, and I did note that there was at least one possible hardship from those questionnaires. But before I ask you the direct question, have you give me a direct answer about whether this would be a hardship, I think you need to know what the anticipated schedule will be in this case so you can give me a more certain answer on the hardship question. I have been working with Mr. Kachurgas and the court personnel to try to streamline the case and the evidence and testimony that's going to be needed. But the best estimate I can give you here today is that your service today, as far as your participation in jury selection, should be over with by mid to late morning based upon our experience yesterday. And then if you're we won't know whether you're selected yet until after the last jury panel is completed this afternoon. But if you're selected to serve on this jury, what will happen is that you'll be sent an email with instructions on what to do on Monday morning at 9 a.m. And our trial will start Monday morning at 9 a.m. You won't be coming here to the courthouse. You'll be given an invitation to join us via Zoom to participate in the trial. And the best I can give you an estimate right now, the best estimate would be that we would be done with the trial on Monday. There's a very slight possibility if we have technology problems or logistical problems, it could, very remote chance it could go over into the next day on Tuesday. And if it does, then that we will start again at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. But more likely than not, we'll start at 9 a.m. on Monday, and the case will be in your hands at some point, probably likely by afternoon on Monday. It'll be in your hands to deliberate a verdict. If for some reason we have technology glitches or logistical problems, and we go throughout the entire day Monday, we would probably wrap up our court session by 5 o'clock at the earliest, or 6 p.m. at the latest. But I really do anticipate that we'll be able to give you the case. You'll be deliberating it Monday afternoon. And if you're deliberating the case, there's no time limit on that. We don't start a clock and say you have this much time to deliberate. You're allowed to deliberate for as long or as short a time as necessary to consider all the evidence and follow my instructions and reach a unanimous verdict. Throughout the trial day on Monday, I do take breaks. About every 60 to 90 minutes, I take a comfort break. Obviously, if you need breaks more rapidly than that, you can let us know and we can make those accommodations. And I take a 15-minute comfort break, at least one in the morning and at least 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Then there'll also be a lunch recess. I know most of you will be concerned about being away from home or for work for that length of time, or being prevented from handling your day-to-day responsibilities at home or in other areas of your life while you're remotely participating in this jury selection this morning and have selected to serve in the trial on Monday. However, before you respond to the question of whether or not you have a hardship, I need to ask each of you to consider what is at stake. The Bill of Rights in our federal Constitution and the Declaration of Rights in our Florida Constitution guarantee all of us the right to a trial by jury to resolve our civil disputes. This is a very important right. It dates back to the very founding of our country and is a cornerstone of our system of civil justice. It means that the citizens of our community, applying the laws that we all must follow, determine the rights and liberties that are at stake in each civil case. We use the term service when we speak about jurors because selection as a juror is a significant service to your community. Outside of voting and serving in the armed forces, I do not know of any more important service that each of you can provide individually to your community, because the right to a civil jury trial is meaningless without your participation. Quite simply, neither I nor any other judge can afford the citizens of our community the right to a trial by jury if I don't have anyone willing to participate, who's willing and able to serve as a juror. Because of the importance of the right to a trial by jury, a hardship that will excuse a person from jury duty has to be more than just a disruption or an inconvenience to your life. If that were the only issue, then we'd never have a jury, because everyone's going to say it disrupts my schedule, it's an inconvenience because you all have schedules, you all have work, you have children, you have families, you have social obligations and other obligations. And so this will be an interruption to that. I understand that, but it has to be more than just an inconvenience or disruption. The best way I can explain what a hardship is to give you some examples of things that I've found to be hardships in the past. This is not meant to be an exclusive list. It's just examples of things I've found to be hardships in the past. One might be a medical condition that prevents you from sitting for the required period of time. Another one might be that you're caring for an ill family member or someone with special needs and there's no one to cover for you during the time that you'd be serving in this case. Another one might be that you have small children, young children, or children that aren't in school and there's no one to help you with childcare. I understand that. Another one might be that you have a non-refundable trip for a vacation, a cruise, airline tickets, hotel reservations, something that you've scheduled long ago and you won't be able to get a refund for it and you can't reschedule it, and that would be a hardship. Another one might be like the example I gave you earlier of the student who's in school, in college, and has exams, projects due, and the professor won't make accommodations and they're worried that they're going to flunk their course because they can't get accommodations from their professor. Again, I know that participation as a juror in a 1 or 2 day trial calls for a sacrifice. I hope you will consider how important the right to a trial by jury is to preserve the freedom that we all enjoy before you decide whether or not you want to claim a hardship in this case. In going through your questionnaires, I noticed that there was at least one of you who had indicated something on their questionnaire that might arguably be considered a problem or might be a potential hardship. And Ms. Spanos, juror number 69, you can unmute your microphone. Ms. Spanos, I noticed in your questionnaire, and when I was reading through it in advance of today's proceedings, that you indicated that you might have a hardship because you have a new puppy who's in the house and you cannot control the puppy if he barks. And most of us who've had dogs have experienced what it's like to have a puppy, and that's certainly understandable. Puppies, especially when they're very young, they're always barking and yelping and they always want attention, and you're trying to get them used to being in your house. I understand all of that. But Ms. Spanos, do you feel like that you've got that covered this morning? Is your puppy able to separate?
Well, my daughter is watching the puppy right now. She has him out, but he was barking earlier, just like at the very beginning of it. But I'm not quite sure if she's going to be around, all day or whatever. And the reason also is I've had to take him I just got him got her, and she's had a urinary thing going on. So I've had to take off work for that. So, and I'm on a contractor job right now where I'm trying to get on full time, and I don't make that much money. And with everything going on, I can't afford to miss any time because I don't get paid at all.
Okay, so your employer will not pay you if you're off. Okay.
No.
But they're not going to punish you for participating in jury service, but you just won't get paid.
No, but it's going to mess up my quota, and it goes per month how many sales we have. And I'm trying to get on full time because I have no health. I'm working for Florida Blue and I don't have no health care. So I'm trying, and I'm a single, I've got divorced and stuff. So, but if I get chosen, but I do have an issue with all that. So.
Do you feel like you'd have a hard time giving us your full undivided attention with the puppy, with a new puppy, and with the knowledge that you won't be paid for that day of service?
Yeah. I've got so many bills, and with everything going on, we haven't gotten any extra money or anything I've worked from the time that this all started, the virus started. So, yes, sir. Right. Or yes, Your Honor, I guess I should say.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll also address the rest of you. I did not see anything in your questionnaires that indicated a hardship by my notes, but now that you know more specifically what the schedule is going to be in this case, I'm going to ask the rest of you, do any of you feel like that there would be a hardship in serving as a juror in this case other than Ms. Spanos? And please go ahead and unmute your microphones and respond verbally.
No.
Your
No.
Honor.
No.
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 All right, did anyone, it sounds like most, if not all of you answered no to that question. Did anyone answer differently than the majority? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that all of our jurors have indicated that this, other than Ms. Spanos, have indicated this would not be a hardship to serve as a juror in this case. So thank you so much for your responses. I next need to address the questionnaire. So you all are really the first group to ever fill out this questionnaire. No one else has ever done this questionnaire that's online that we gather. If you remember, we gathered some basic biographical information about you. We also gathered some information about your prior history, if any, as a juror. We also asked for information about whether you have been a party yourself to litigation or a family member have been a party to litigation. And we also asked a hardship question. And so the beauty of doing something the first time is as exciting as never been done before. The downside is that sometimes there are problems when you do something for the first time. There are things that we overlook when we prepare things. But the benefit of having you all as our jurors is that we get feedback from you. And one of your fellow jurors, Mr. Shoup, was kind enough to let us know in advance of the proceedings today that he saw an issue with the litigation history section of the questionnaire. And that litigation history was one that we worked through and thought through, but the problem, and I take responsibility for this because ultimately it's my responsibility, that we did not provide you an opportunity to answer or provide more litigation history than just one. I think it was only allowed for one opportunity to list prior litigation history. It didn't give you an opportunity to put more than one involvement or more than one experience in litigation. So Mr. Shoup pointed that out to us, and we're going to make a correction of that for our next remote trial in September, but that doesn't help us now. So we want to make sure that we haven't left anything out. So Mr. Shoup, I'll start with you, juror number 67, since you found that out for us or discovered that for us. Was there any other litigation history that you wanted to report to us that wasn't in the questionnaire?
I'm not sure, Your Honor, which one I reported. I have a previous divorce in my life, and I also have a pending case against my former homeowner's insurance for a IRMA claim.
In your questionnaire, I have it in front of me, you listed the divorce. So the homeowner's claim would have been the one that you would have added had you had room to do so.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Mr. Shoup. Is there anyone else who felt like that when they did the questionnaire that they weren't given enough room in the questionnaire to provide a full litigation history or involvement in lawsuit history? I see a hand raised. Ms. Tomlinson.
Yes, I just want to make it clear that I work for an insurance carrier. I'm a licensed claims adjuster and I handle litigated claims.
Right.
So I'm not personally a party to litigated matters, but I do work for the defendant side.
Okay. So you deal with insurance claims.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Tomlinson. Was there anyone else that felt like that the litigation history section of the questionnaire that you filled it out, then you thought to yourself, like Mr. Shoup, this isn't giving me enough room to fully report my litigation history? Ms. Spanos, did you had your hand raised?
The same. I got divorced and I had some issues going on with my house during my divorce and you couldn't put everything on there, so there wasn't room to do it. So
well, this is great. This is great input from all of you. This is going to help us going forward to make the questionnaire better when we do the next trial. So thanks so much. Anyone else have any other thoughts as far as not having enough room to provide litigation history? I don't see any other hands raised. All right, thank you so much. And for the record, I am marking all of your questionnaires as Court's Composite Exhibit B for identification. They will be sealed and I'll enter an order to make them confidential. They do have a lot of personal information each one of you are kind enough to provide to the court. These are very helpful to us and they're actually going to save us a lot of time. And I am going to mark them for the record as Court's Composite Exhibit B. These are all the questionnaires for today's jury panels, both this morning and this afternoon. So thank you so much for doing those questionnaires. We're now at the point in these proceedings this morning where I need to introduce to you the case and the participants. The name of this case is Plaintiff Cayla Griffin versus Defendant Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise. Later during the remote jury selection, I will provide you more details about the subject matter of this case. For now, you should be aware that this is a civil trial involving allegations of battery by 2 employees of the defendant. A civil trial is different from a criminal case where a defendant is charged by the state prosecutor with committing a crime. The subject of a civil trial is a disagreement between people or companies. Where the claims of one or more of these parties have been brought to court to be resolved, it is called a trial of a lawsuit. The first order of business is to introduce you to the court personnel and participants in this trial and explain their various roles to you. As I stated before, I will be the judge that presides over this case. You may hear people occasionally refer to me as the court. That is the formal name for my role. My job is to maintain order and decide how to apply the rules of law to the trial. I will also explain various rules to you that you will need in order to do your job if you're selected to be a remote juror. It is my responsibility to remain neutral on the issues involved in this case. Corrine Hodak, who will appear on your screen momentarily, is our special magistrate for the 4th Judicial Circuit's Remote Civil Jury Trial Project. Special Magistrate Hodak's duties and responsibilities will be to oversee the remote bailiffs and ensure that our remote courtroom trial procedures are being followed. However, Ms. Hodak, as our special magistrate, cannot answer any questions about the case. Only I can do that. I've already used the term plaintiff and defendant to describe the parties involved in this lawsuit. A party who files a lawsuit is called the plaintiff. A party that is sued is called the defendant. The plaintiff in this case is appearing remotely and represented by counsel, who is also appearing remotely. The attorney on your screen with the phrase plaintiff attorney represents the plaintiff, who is the party who filed the lawsuit in this case. His job is to present the plaintiff's side of things to you. As an attorney, he has taken an oath to do his best and follow the rules for his profession. At this time, I would ask plaintiff's counsel, Mr. Kaczurgas, to introduce himself as well as his client, who appears on your screen with the word plaintiff.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Kaczurgas, and I'm counsel for plaintiff Cayla Griffin, who you can see up on the screen, I believe, in the box next to me. And good morning, and thank you for your service.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kaczurgas. The defendant, Albanese Enterprise, Inc., DBA, or doing business as Paradise, has exercised its right to elect not to participate in this trial. You've already met Brian Corrigan, who is a deputy clerk of the court, who confirmed your identification first thing this morning when you arrived to these proceedings and swore you in a few minutes ago. But there are also going to be 2 additional persons on your screen with the label trial clerk. They are Nate Rogerson and Diana Irizarry. They appear on your screen there with the label clerk on their screen. They are our deputy clerks of court that will be assisting me during this trial. They're going to be assisting me with the mechanics of the trial process, including numbering and collection of the exhibits that are introduced as evidence during the course of the trial. And one of them may be placing witnesses under oath, or the court may be placing witnesses under oath during the course of the proceedings. All right, thank you, Mr. Rogerson and Ms. Irizarry. The person sitting at the stenograph machine on your screen that will be appearing momentarily is our remote court reporter, Stephanie Shear. Her job is to keep an accurate record of everything we say or do during this trial, including the statements and comments made during jury selection by the attorneys and me, as well as those of all the prospective jurors. Before going any further with introductions, I'd like to make sure that you're aware that when you respond to questions asked during jury selection, make sure that you provide a complete verbal response. Please pause before you speak in this remote courtroom because we don't want everyone talking over each other. And with satellite signals and satellite delays in the wonderful world of the World Wide Web, sometimes we have technology glitches and there's overlap and delay. So just pause a moment before you answer questions so no one's talking over each other. Also, in our normal conversations, we often nod our head, shake our head, or we use some type of nonverbal response, a grunt or a groan or some sound like or or And in normal social settings and conversation, that's normal, that's how we communicate. But in a courtroom, we really need a yes or a no or some verbal response because we don't want the court reporter to be in a position of having to interpret what your nonverbal response means. Please don't be offended if the court reporter or the court or Mr. Kaczurgis or the clerk or anyone else asks you to repeat yourself or restate your answer. Because of the limits of technology, we may have difficulty hearing you, or there may be overlap or persons talking over top of each other. So please don't be offended if we ask you to repeat your answer. We just want to make sure we have a good record. Also appearing on your screen at this point will be several persons with the title bailiff or the label bailiff on the screen. They are Mike Smith, James Muse, and Patrick Estelila. You'll see where it says remote bailiff on the screen, and they are remote bailiffs for this trial. They have a little different responsibilities in this trial, in this remote trial. Mr. Smith is what I call a remote trial bailiff. He's really responsible for overseeing the entire remote trial technology. Mr. Muse, who you probably had a great deal of contact with earlier this morning, he is what I would refer to as a remote jury bailiff. His devotion and time are spent entirely on you, the jury, and making sure that all your needs are taken care of, making sure that the technology works correctly for each of you. He's really dedicated to you. Mr. Estelila is also a remote bailiff, but I kind of consider him to be a crossover between both roles. He may assist Mr. Smith with the responsibilities of a remote trial bailiff and also assist Mr. Muse as a remote jury bailiff. So he's wearing more than one hat. But the benefit that we have with having all of these remote bailiffs is not only have they learned how to do the skills of a bailiff here that in a physical in-person trial, but they've also are experts on technology. They are court technology officers. And I will tell you, I don't think I'm exaggerating by saying this, that they are part of the best court technology office that we have here in the state of Florida among all the various circuits from Pensacola to Key West. They are the very best court technology officers that we have. There are others that are on the screen right now. They're also part of that, but we are blessed here to have wonderful IT staff. They make us all look good. And so with that being said, they are very well prepared to help you with any technology problems that you may have. But please remember that the type of questions that you can ask them are very limited. You can ask them about schedule, you can ask them about logistics, you can ask them about technology problems, you can ask them about whether you can simple things like what you should wear when you're serving on the jury, whether you can eat or not, just ordinary garden variety things you can ask them about along with technology, but they can't answer any questions about the case. So if you have questions about the case or about the law or about the rules that apply to your case, they can't answer any of that. Only the court can answer those questions. Last but not least is the remote jury, which we'll begin to select in a few moments from among all of you, as well as the panels yesterday and the panel that follows you this afternoon. The remote trial jury's job will be to decide what the facts are and what the facts mean. Jurors should be as neutral as possible at this point and have no fixed opinion about the lawsuit. In order to have a fair and lawful trial, there are rules that all jurors must follow. I need you to listen very closely to these. A basic rule is that jurors must decide the case only on the evidence presented in the remote courtroom. You must not communicate or talk with anyone, including your fellow jurors, friends, family members, co-workers, anyone at all about this case or the people or places involved in this case, or about your remote jury service. You must not disclose your thoughts about this case or ask for advice on how to decide this case. I want to stress that this rule means that you must not use your electronic devices or computers to communicate with anyone about this case, including tweeting, texting, blogging, emailing, posting information on a social media website or chat room, or any other means at all. Do not send or accept any messages to or from anyone about this case or your jury service. Also, please do not invite anyone to join you in your remote location to watch the remote jury selection or the remote trial with you. You must participate in these court sessions alone. You can't have other people in there with you watching. You must not do any research or look up words, names, maps, or anything else that might have anything to do with this case. That includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, a cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people or places involved in this case. This applies whether you're in the remote courthouse, at home, or anywhere else, whether court's in session or you're on a recess or not in session. Those rules still apply. What are the reasons for all these rules that I'm giving you here this morning? These rules are imposed because jurors must decide the case without distraction and only based on the evidence presented in this remote courtroom. If you investigate, research, or make inquiries on your own outside the remote courtroom, the trial judge has no way to make sure that the information you obtain is proper for this case. The parties likewise have no opportunity to dispute or challenge the accuracy of what you find when you do your own investigation. That is contrary to our judicial system, which assures every party the right to ask questions about and challenge the evidence being considered against it and to present argument with respect to that evidence. Any independent investigation by a juror unfairly and improperly prevents the parties from having that opportunity our judicial system promises. Any juror who violates these restrictions jeopardizes the fairness of these proceedings, and a mistrial could result that would require the entire trial process to start over. A mistrial is a tremendous expense and inconvenience to the parties, the court, and the taxpayers. If you violate these rules, you may be held in contempt of court and face sanctions such as serving time in jail, paying a fine, or both. All of your communications with the remote courtroom personnel or me will be part of the record of these proceedings. That means that those communications shall either be made in open court with the remote court reporter present, or if they are in writing, the writing must be filed with the remote court clerk. I have instructed the remote courtroom personnel that any communications you have with them outside of my presence must be reported to me, and I will tell the parties and their attorneys about any communication from you that I believe to be of interest to them. However, you may communicate directly with the remote courtroom personnel, the bailiffs, as well as our special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, about matters concerning your comfort and safety, logistics and schedule, the Zoom platform, technology issues, internet issues, those types of garden variety, everyday, normal tasks. Those you can directly talk to the remote personnel, the bailiffs, and our special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, and they don't have to be reported to me. Those are simply ordinary matters that don't have to be on the record. If you become aware of any violation of these instructions or any other instruction I give you in this case, you must tell me by sending a written note to the remote bailiff or the special magistrate by using the private Zoom chat message. After each recess, please make sure to double check to make sure your cell phone or other electronic device not being used by you to participate in this jury selection is turned completely off. Also, please make sure that you do not bring your cell phone or other electronic device not being used by you to participate in this remote jury selection into the remote courtroom, or if you're selected to serve on the remote jury, once the remote trial begins, those devices have to stay out of the remote courtroom. Please store those devices in a safe place so they won't be a distraction to you. Out of sight, out of mind. I next want to give you an overview or an explanation of how the jury selection process works so that you might have a better idea of what you can expect as we move forward. The plaintiff is going to select 8 jurors to hear this case. At the start of jury selection, I'm going to read you a general description of the case, including the names of potential remote witnesses and participants. I will ask you a series of questions about your knowledge of the alleged facts, witnesses, and participants. Each of you have already provided us with that online written questionnaire that was sent to you after you received your summons. So we already have all that basic biographical information. So that'll save us some time this morning. The plaintiff's attorney will have an opportunity to ask you some more specific questions about the case to determine whether or not you can be fair and impartial to all sides given the issues that are involved. I will then meet with the plaintiff's attorney and the plaintiff remotely outside of your presence, and they will advise me of their selections for the jury in this case. And that should take place by this afternoon. It is anticipated that jury selection for your panel should be complete, as I said earlier, sometime by mid to late morning. And you'll know later on today whether you're going to be serving on this jury or not. As I stated earlier, I'm going to begin jury selection by asking you a series of questions concerning your knowledge of this case and the factual allegations and participants in the case. I'm about to read to you a very brief description of the case. I need you to listen very closely to it because my questions that follow are going to be based on this very brief description. So listen very closely. This case involves plaintiff Cayla Griffin seeking damages against her former employer, defendant Albanese Enterprises, Inc., DBA, or doing business as Paradise, for injuries she suffered at the hands of two other employees of the establishment named Marcus Bruschi and George Malcolm. On February 26, 2018, Ms. Griffin was beaten by the two men as she attempted to retrieve her belongings from inside. Ms. Griffin filed suit against Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise, alleging a claim of battery based upon Mr. Malcolm and Mr. Bruschi intentionally and unlawfully striking Ms. Griffin against her will and without legal justification. The court has already determined that the defendant, Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise, is liable for the battery committed against Ms. Griffin by its employees, Mr. Malcolm and Mr. Bruschi. Your job is to determine the amount of damages Ms. Griffin is entitled to for compensation for the injuries she suffered. Ms. Griffin is seeking damages for the injuries she suffered, medical and dental expenses, severe pain and suffering, mental anguish, and emotional distress. Knowing what I've told you here and what I've described for you as the case here this morning, do any of you have any knowledge of this incident or this case prior to today? I need you to unmute your microphones and answer verbally.
No.
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 No, Your Honor.
No.
No.
It sounds like all of you have answered no to that question. Is there anyone that had a different answer than the majority? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that all of our prospective jurors have answered no to that question. Earlier, the attorney trying this case introduced himself and his client, Ms. Griffin. Do any of you feel like that you personally know the trial attorney in this case, Mr. Kaczurgas? I need you to unmute your microphones.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
No.
I don't
Right.
think I saw, I might have been, is that when we were getting our license? Did you show them or?
No, we're talking about Mr. Kaczurgas, the trial attorney. I'm asking if any of you know him. So Mr. Kaczurgas is the attorney trying the case on behalf of the plaintiff who introduced himself to you earlier. So I did see, Ms. Spanos, did you know Mr. Kaczurgas?
No.
Okay, I did see some hands raised, and I'll go in order. Mr. Shoup, juror number 67. You can go ahead and unmute your microphone. Mr. Shoup, you know Mr. Kaczurgas?
Yes, Your Honor.
And how do you know Mr. Kaczurgas?
Through my employment, along with my mother had been previously represented by he and his firm.
Okay. And your employment's with the Jacksonville Bar Association?
Yes, sir. I'm the executive director.
Right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Shoup. And then I also saw another hand raised. I believe it was juror number 70, Ms. Tomlinson.
Yes, Mr. Kaczurgas had previously represented my daughter in a case.
All right. Thank you. Right, anyone else know Mr. Kaczurgas? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that only Mr. Shoup, juror number 67, and juror number 70, Ms. Tomlinson, knew Mr. Kaczurgas. All right, you can unmute your microphones because there's some additional questions I have to ask. Each of you were introduced to the court personnel a few minutes ago. Do any of you feel like that you know any of the court personnel, including the court? If so, please raise your hand.
Yes.
All right, anyone else other than Mr. Shoup?
No.
No, Your Honor.
No.
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 All right, let the record reflect that none of our prospective jurors knew any of the court personnel except for Mr. Shoup, juror number 67. Mr. Shoup, of the court personnel, who do you know?
Yourself, Your Honor, along with all three of the remote bailiffs and Mr. Corrigan.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Shoup. And so there's also witnesses who may testify in this case. We have the plaintiff herself, Cayla Griffin, who may testify, who you were introduced to earlier. She also has a witness named Charlie Griffin who may testify as well. Do any of you feel like that you know the plaintiff, Ms. Griffin, or the witness, Charlie Griffin? I need you to unmute your microphones and answer verbally.
No.
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 All right, sounds like everyone answered no to that question, but did anyone answer differently in the majority? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that all of our prospective jurors have indicated they do not know the plaintiff or the potential witness, Charlie Griffin. We're now at the stage where Mr. Kaczurgis is going to have an opportunity to ask you some questions for jury selection here this morning. And this is going to provide Mr. Kaczurgis an opportunity to ask you more specific questions about the issues that may be relevant to this case in order to help him and his client come to their own conclusions about your ability to be fair and impartial in this case. After he has asked all of his questions of this jury panel and all of the other jury panel this afternoon, as I said earlier, I'll meet with him and his client, and he'll select the 8 jurors to serve in this case. That process will involve the exercise, what may be the exercise of what we call cause challenges, where he presents to the court a reason that he believes a potential juror might be unable to be fair and impartial. That's a cause challenge or a challenge for cause. He may also exercise some peremptory challenges in which he can exercise and strike or remove a juror for any reason. He doesn't have to provide one at all. Ms. Davis, are you okay? I see Ms. Davis, juror number 75. You moved to a different location. You can unmute your microphone.
I'm having some connection issues, so
Okay.
I moved to the other side of the room to see if it'll come in better.
Well, you did it very gracefully. I could barely tell that you had changed location other than the background. There were really very little movement on the camera, and you did it very smoothly. So I just want to
Good
make sure
balance.
you did it great. So I want to check to see if there's anything we need to help you with. Are you
I should be okay now.
all right, Ms. Davis, can you hear me and see me at this time?
I can.
Okay, very good then. Well, please let us know if you have any connection problems.
Thank you.
All right, I'll pick up where I left off. But through this process of elimination, the remaining persons that are selected will be our final jury in this case, our 8 jurors. And so this conference will take place later on today after the last panel is completed. As far as you're concerned, please don't take it as an insult, and please don't be offended if for some reason later on today you get an email that says you are not selected to serve on this jury. Only 8 of you can serve, and when we say 8 of you, that means 8 of you from among all the panels. So there was 2 panels yesterday, your panel, and 1 that follows you. So more likely than not, you will not be selected just based upon the odds when we're only picking 8. So please don't be offended if you're not selected, and please don't feel like it's an insult to you or that your integrity or your honesty are being questioned, because they are not. This is really just a process of selecting jurors who can be fair and impartial in this particular case, and with whom the plaintiff and plaintiff's counsel can be comfortable. The questions you're going to be asked during this phase of jury selection are not intended to embarrass you or pry into your personal affairs, but it's very important for the plaintiff and her attorney to know enough about you to make this important decision. If a question is asked of you that you would prefer to not answer in front of the entire jury panel and the spectators, please let us know, and you'll be permitted to give your answer outside their presence. We'll go to a remote sidebar conference, and you can answer the question in the presence of the court, the lawyer, and the court reporter away from everyone else. But I do advise you to use your discretion when taking advantage of this remote option, as it will take a long time to get through this day if each one of you want to answer all the questions remotely away from all the other jurors. There are no right or wrong answers to the questions that are going to be asked of you here today. The only thing that I ask you, the real basic ground rule, is that you answer the questions as frankly and as honestly and as completely as you can. You've taken an oath to answer all these questions truthfully and completely, and you must do so. If you remain silent when you have information you should disclose, it is a violation of that oath as well. If a juror violates this oath, it not only may result in having to try the case all over again, but also can result in civil and criminal penalties against a juror personally. So again, it is very important that you be as honest and complete with your answers as you possibly can. If you don't understand the question, please raise your hand and ask for an explanation or a clarification. In summary, this is a process to assist the parties and their attorney to select a jurors that can be fair and impartial to both sides. In order to have a fair and impartial jury, the law does not require that each juror have no opinions or biases in order to be selected to serve. Everyone comes into this courtroom here today, this remote courtroom, with your own opinions and your own biases. We can't control that. That's human nature. The law simply requires that a juror be able to set aside any opinions or biases that they presently hold and decide this case based solely on the law and the evidence that's put on during the course of the trial. All the questions the attorney asks you are for this purpose and this purpose alone. If you for any reason do not think that you can be fair and impartial, then if you do not feel you can be fair and impartial, please tell us now. I understand that we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes, and we're going to understand from Mr. Ashley just gave me a message while I was reading that to you, that one of you needs to take a comfort break, or maybe more of you do. So what we're going to do now is we'll take a 10-minute comfort break here. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a stopwatch that goes up on the screen with 10 minutes on it. Mr. Ashley's going to load that up, and that'll be on the screen. That's your cue as jurors to know to get back in your position in front of the screen. During this break, you can't talk to each other about the case. You can't talk to other people about the case. And Ms. Spanos, did you have something to bring up? You're muted, Ms. Spanos.
I'm sorry. I have a question. I thought this was from 8:30 to 10. Is it going to last? How much longer is it going to last so I can just inform my work?
Okay, I suspect that based upon yesterday, Mr. Kuchergis, once we get back from the break, how long do you think your questions are going to be somewhere? Is it somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour?
I believe so, Your Honor. In an abundance of caution, I'd say we're not going to be any longer than noon.
Okay, so our plan is to be done with this by noon because we do have another panel that's coming in right after yours. I don't think we'll go past, I know I can guarantee you we aren't going past noon. So it could be sooner than that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so don't talk to each other about the case. Don't talk to others about the case. Keep your eye out on that recess clock. During this recess, you can go to the bathroom, get a snack, get something to drink. You can put a load of laundry in the dryer. You can put something in the crock pot for later tonight for dinner. You can do all those things at your home, and then we'll be back on in 10 minutes. So we're in recess for 10 minutes, and that stopwatch will begin now. Thank you. All right, we're back from the recess, and let me get Mr. Muse on. Mr. Muse, our remote jury bailiff for all the jurors present and accounted for.
They're all accounted for, Your Honor. Bailiff Muse went on the restroom break.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Estelila. So all the jurors are present and accounted for. I'm going to begin the same way I began this morning, which is by asking each one of you, you can unmute your microphones and you know whether you can see me and hear me coming back from the recess.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I can.
All right, very good then. I need you to remember we're about to transition to Mr. Katurgis's questions. I need you to remember that all the rules I've given you apply even when you're outside the remote courtroom in recess, and the attorney for the plaintiff will now ask you some questions remotely. What Mr. Katurgis says now or any other time during the trial is not to be accepted by you as evidence or law. In fact, he is not allowed to tell you what the law is. That is the job of the court. He will simply be asking you questions, looking for answers from you. Please do not infer anything or read anything into the questions he asks you. At this time, I will call upon Mr. Katurgis to inquire the jury panel remotely. Mr. Katurgis?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and once again, thank you for your service here today. As we've all heard for the last several months, we're living in unprecedented times. And I have to tell you that this experience for me is rather weird. I'm used to being in a courtroom and dealing with people eyeball to eyeball, and I'm a people person. I like hugging, I like handshakes, and this whole experience to me, as I said, is rather weird. But I want to thank you for participating in it, because we're all entering a brave new world with COVID, and we've been living with this stuff since March, so we've got to find a workaround, and we're all going to try to do that through these remote proceedings. And I want to thank you for appearing this morning and giving the court and myself your undivided attention. It's important that we be able to try to move forward in society despite what's going on around us, and that's what we're trying to do here with these proceedings this week. What the process that we're engaged in now is referred to as voir dire. And what that is a French term that means to speak the truth. And that's what we're here to do, is find out a little bit about one another and yourselves to determine whether you would be a fair and impartial juror for this particular case. And as the court had alluded to earlier, the good news about all of this is there are no right or wrong answers. Anything you say here is absolutely fine. And we're trying to do that because as people, we all have inherent biases about things. I have them in my own right. I wouldn't be a fair and impartial juror for a certain type of case. And that's okay. And I suspect that almost all of us have certain inherent biases that we live with that would make us maybe not suitable for a particular type of case. Maybe it's this case. And that's what we're trying to find out, is if anyone has any opinions or beliefs, feelings on some things based upon past experience or life experience that may not make any one of you a particularly good juror for this case. Might be fine for another one, but might not be suitable for this. And so there is no right or wrong answers. We're just trying to determine whether any of those things exist so that we can select the best jury possible. And so I also would like to thank you for filling out the jury questionnaires. As the judge has alluded to, those have been shared with the participants in this case, and I've had the benefit of reviewing them, and it kind of streamlines the process. And on some of these questionnaires, I'll have some follow-up questions, with some maybe more so than others. But what I'm going to do is maybe start by going through them in the order of juror number and have some follow-up questions, and then we'll talk perhaps more generally about certain aspects of this case to find if anyone has any feelings about it that may impact their ability to serve as a juror in the case. So with that being said, if I could start with Mr. Gill, juror number 62, if I could ask you to unmute yourself there. Mr. Gill, I see from your jury questionnaire, you live in the Mandarin area and have been there for about a year. Is that correct?
Correct. That's
and
correct.
Where did you live prior to the Mandarin area?
I lived over off 103rd in the west side.
Over on the west side? And how long were you out there?
Oh, over 20 years.
Okay. And I see from the questionnaire that you're currently construction project manager?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. And is that a local company for which you work?
Yes, it is. Well, they're based out of Charlotte. We have branches all over.
Very good. And obviously you work with the Jacksonville office?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there anything about that job, or do you have any projects going on that would interfere with your ability to serve as a juror in this case?
Not, well, I started to say not at this moment. We had over $1 million job we were bidding, and it was due today. And there's been a little bit of texting going on, and I was trying to stay out of, but I think I got that squared away, and they're putting the final touches on it now. So I should be good.
In the event your company is awarded the bid, does that mean all hands are on deck and you need to get to work on that $1 million project?
You broke up a little bit on the audio there. Could you repeat that?
Yes, certainly. In the event your company succeeds in the bidding process and is awarded the bid, is that a circumstance where the company requires all hands on deck and you need to get to work on that $1 million project?
No, we're done with it now. Even if they were awarded that project, it wouldn't happen until next year sometime. So,
okay. So you're able to serve if selected?
Yes.
Very good. And I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I don't mean this as a negative question, but I see in the background, there's a young lady that's entered and passed through the screen on a couple of occasions. May I ask who that is?
That's my girlfriend.
Okay.
She worked from home for Citibank.
Okay. As a lot of people are doing these days, and that's absolutely fair. And as I said, there's not a problem with that. I'm just seeing it and following up. May I ask what your girlfriend does for a living?
She works for Citibank collections on credit cards.
Very good. And I see from your questionnaire you have a daughter?
Yes, I do.
Or excuse me, I don't know that. You have a child, I should say.
Yes, I have a daughter.
The daughter, okay. And I see that she's a teacher for, is it Alexis Edwards School?
Yeah, it's not, no, that's not the name of the school. That's her name.
Okay, I was a little confused by the questionnaires. The court said this is the first time run at this, so we're all working through the technicalities of it. She worked for the Duval County Public School System?
Yes, I believe so. I don't know the name of the school off the top of my head. It's over off 103rd.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of the school.
Is it elementary, middle, high school?
It's elementary.
Okay. Does she have a certain topic, or is it just general education for a group of students?
Just general education. I think she moves from classroom to classroom, helping like special needs kids with, learning disabilities and stuff.
Very good. On your questionnaire, as I said, there's technicalities that we're all sorting through on the first run with this stuff. In the question that related to a party to a prior lawsuit, you check the box no, but underneath it, it's got written personal injury and plaintiff. And so there's a little internal consistency with the answer. I'm assuming, but I want to verify with you that you may have been a prior party to a lawsuit.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you were a
Asbestos.
plaintiff-
Asbestos.
Okay, and you were a plaintiff in that claim?
Yes.
How long ago was that, if I may ask?
Well, that's been years ago. I mean, it was ongoing with the asbestos manufacturers. So that thing ran. It was a class action lawsuit. And that thing ran for years, but it's been over for probably more than 10 years now, I would say.
Anything about that experience as a plaintiff in that suit that would affect your ability to be fair and impartial in this case?
No, I don't believe so, because I was just in a class action lawsuit. I mean, I don't see how that would affect anything.
You never saw a courtroom, I take it?
No,
Okay. Did you get deposed?
no.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gill. I may return with some follow-up later, but thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next, if I could for a moment speak with, and the Hollywood squares have shuffled around on me here a second, so let me try to identify where everyone is. Ms. Meyer, number 63.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Meyer. I was observing earlier there may have been some difficulty on your end with the unmute function. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, and I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, very good. On these questionnaires, there was a section there about technology, ability to access, familiarity with the platforms, all of that thing. And I know one of the questions specifically, have you ever used FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or any other way of communicating remotely with video and audio? You had checked no. Apparently you've gotten over that lack of familiarity and are here with us this morning and able to appear and participate quite well. Is that correct?
Yes. My
Okay.
daughters help me.
Oh, it's nice to have some youth in the home that can do that.
Oh, yes.
3 boys of my own, and I know how that goes. And so you're functioning fine, and whatever lack of exposure to those platforms you may have had, you've gotten over and you're able to participate. Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yes.
And I see from your questionnaire, you've lived in the East Arlington area of town for about 16 years.
Correct.
And prior to that, you lived in Washington State. Where did you live out there?
We lived in Marysville. It's
I have
about
no idea
45,
where that is.
it's about 45 minutes east of or north of Seattle.
Up near Canada then, correct?
Yes, correct.
Little different climate.
Oh, yes.
Particularly in August. And I see that you were formerly a daycare provider and apparently ran your own daycare. Is that correct?
Correct. For 20 years.
20 years? And when
Yes.
did you stop doing that?
2003.
You must be a woman of extreme patience.
That's what they say.
Yeah. And you have 2 grown daughters?
No, one daughter and a son that has passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. If I may ask, what was the cause of his death? And if anything I ask to anyone touches a nerve or is very personal and you don't want to discuss it in this forum, please advise, and we can ask the court to handle this at sidebar if you're uncomfortable discussing this publicly. But I've got a job to do and certain questions to ask, and I don't mean to demean or get into your britches or any of that stuff. It's just I've got questions to ask, but I want to put that out there for anyone, that if we touch on something that may get a little close to the stove or a little personal, we can take this to sidebar and do it privately. But Ms. Mayor, if I could ask, how did your son pass away?
He lost his battle with depression and he took his life.
I'm very sorry to hear that, and it's a brutal condition, and it's particularly brutal in this day and age. So my condolences to you and your family. Your daughter is she in the education business as well?
No, No.
Oh, nutrition specialist for Head Start. Is
Yes.
that the young parent program?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And how long has she been doing that?
He's been doing that for 2 years.
And enjoys it?
Yes.
Good, good. And who do you, I see you're appearing from home, I take it, from the background?
Correct.
And do you live with anyone at the residence?
My husband of 44 years.
What is he currently working?
No, he's retired.
No. What did he do in a prior life?
He was merchant marine, the engineer.
So you got a little time alone throughout the years then, huh?
Off and on. He was gone most of the time, but now he's here now.
God bless you.
Thank you.
And you haven't been a party to a lawsuit, nor has any member of your family. Is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Meyer, thank you, and thank you for your candor here today. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And Ms. Pugh, juror number 64. There you are. If you could unmute yourself. I think it's in the bottom left. At least it is on my screen.
I pressed it, but I'm good now.
Okay.
That's okay, Ms. Pugh. I do that all the time, so no worries. That goes for everyone.
Okay, thank you for understanding.
We'll work with you. It's fine.
Over the last day and a half, I've done it several times, so absolutely no problem. And I have your questionnaire as well, and I see that you've lived in the Bay Meadows area for 45 years. Is that right?
That's right.
It's an area near and dear to my heart. That's where I was raised as a young man here in town. And prior to that, 45 years was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Is that correct?
That's right. That's where I was born and where I grew up.
Probably still a steel industry up there when you were growing up there. Is that?
Yes, yes, it was.
All right. And I see that you were a retired State Farm insurance customer care agent. How long did you work for State Farm?
38 years.
Okay. Ms. Tomlinson, juror number 70, with us today, had shared with us that she was a claims adjuster working for the insurance company on the defense side. Did your work at State Farm implicate any of those duties?
I sometimes took claims, both automobile claims and homeowner claims, but I was not involved in after I took the claim.
You just took the initial information from the insurer?
Yes, in the customer care, we would take a phone call from somebody that had just been in an accident or needed to file a homeowner claim, and we took their information and actually filed the claim, sometimes connected them with someone that could get them a rental car, that sort of thing. But I was not involved in any
litigation
at all, no.
Very good. And was there anything about your experience working, how long did you work for State Farm? And if I already asked that and forgot.
38 years.
38 years. Anything about your experience working for State Farm that would affect your ability to serve in this case? And this is, I left this out in the beginning, so thanks for letting me segue into this for the benefit of everyone else going forward. The case that's being tried is what we refer to in the business as a damages trial. That's a trial where the court has already advised you that the court has determined that the defendant has been found liable in this case. The trial that's going to be going forward is what we call a damages trial, where the jury determines the amount of damages that Ms. Griffin is entitled to for the incident that she experienced. Would there be anything about your experience working for State Farm for those 38 years that would affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror, where the plaintiff is seeking damages or a monetary award from the other party?
No, I don't foresee any.
Okay. Nothing about your prior work experience would influence your ability to. All right. Very good. And I see your husband, is he retired?
Yes, he is.
And what did he do for a living?
He was in the Marine Corps, and then Griffin, he worked in the car industry, automobile claims on new cars, for example, if there was a problem with a new car.
Did he work for a dealership or like a warranty company?
Yes, with a dealership.
And do you know what he did for the Marine Corps?
He never had to serve in Vietnam, anything like that, but
Was he? And I'm
couple years in the Marine Corps.
Okay, and I may be getting hyper specific here, and if you don't know, that's fine. But do you know if he was infantry, artillery, or some other what they call MOS or military occupation?
Nothing like that.
Okay.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, one, thank you on behalf of me. Thank him for his service.
I will. Thank you.
And I see you got a bachelor's degree. Can I ask where you went to college?
Went to Queens College in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Very good. You've been up and down the East Coast, huh?
I have.
And you've never been a party to a lawsuit, and no one else in your family has either. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Pugh.
Thank you.
Next, if I could talk with juror number 65, Ms. Quinones, and am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Alyssa Quinones.
Quinones, thank you.
Yeah.
And I was having a little trouble picking up your voice earlier. I see you've got the headset on, which tells me you're a little tech savvy, but if you could maybe move the microphone up. Yes, thank you. I don't know that you need to hold it right there, but it'll make it a little easier for me and maybe the others to hear. And I see that you live out in the town center area. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
There are 4 years?
Yes.
So you've seen that thing mushroom to a very large extent over those 4 years, I bet.
That's correct.
Okay. And before that, you lived down in West Palm Beach?
Yes.
And were you born and raised down there?
I was born in Miami, but spent most of my life in West Palm.
Very good. And I see you're married. And what does your husband do, if anything?
He's an IT systems engineer.
Okay. Does he help you gear up for this, or did you able to take care of it yourself?
I'm able to take care of it myself. I'm as well in IT.
Okay. And you've got a background where I can't tell a whole lot about your location. Are you working from the office or are you at the house?
I'm at my home in a bedroom. It's just very empty.
Okay. Very, very good. Nothing about the location. And do you work from home normally, or do you go into an office?
I normally go into an office, but I've been working from home since March.
Got it. And nothing about that would affect your ability to serve, would it?
No, sir.
Okay. And specifically in the IT field, what do you do?
I'm administrative assistant to the CIO.
Okay. And what company is that?
Venus Fashion.
Is that the swimwear company from
Yes, sir.
Jacksonville?
Yep.
Oh, neat. Okay. CIO, is that the Chief Information Officer?
That's correct.
And you're the IT assistant for the CIO?
Yes.
You must be a very tech savvy young lady.
I try.
Okay. And you have not previously served on a jury and never been a party to a lawsuit, nor has any of your family. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Ms. Quinones.
Thank you.
Next, if I could speak with juror number 66, Mr. Reed, if I can, there you are. Mr. Reed, how you doing?
Good morning. Good.
Good. And I see that you're living in the South Side area and have been there for about 15 years.
Yes, that's correct.
And it appears that you're appearing this morning from your home as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And according to the questionnaire I'm looking at, you're a banker for Citibank, correct?
That's right. Yes.
And on the questionnaire, it says business analyst. Just out of curiosity, what do you do as a business analyst?
Yeah, it's always kind of hard to explain. It's kind of a hodgepodge of things. I work on different projects and then do production support for some of those projects, as well as support for our operations team.
Okay. Is this putting other projects outside of Citibank together, or are these Citibank projects?
No, they're specific to Citibank for the department that I'm in.
Okay. And according to the questionnaire, you're married.
Yes.
Does your spouse work?
Yes.
And what does she do for a living?
She's does accounting for a local construction firm here in town.
And how long has she been doing that?
I want to say about 10 or 11 years.
And how long have you been with Citibank?
12 years.
Okay. Pretty healthy run in this day and age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have one 13-year-old child, is that correct?
Yes, a daughter.
Daughter? And so you, like many around the country right now, are gearing up, getting ready for back to school.
Yep.
Is that going to pose any difficulty with you? I know there's a lot of feelings out in the world right now about school and how to accomplish that. Does that cause any anxiety or give you any trepidation about entering into jury service next week?
No. I mean, she would be doing school here from home, but the school doesn't start until the 20th, I don't believe.
Okay, so not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And I see that there was prior litigation, and that was apparently a prior divorce. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Any other exposure personally to the justice process?
No.
And you've never been a party, nor has anyone else in your family been a party to a lawsuit, other than what we just discussed?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reed.
You're welcome.
Mr. Shute, juror number 67.
Yes, sir.
Let's start with this. You had expressed that you know me, and indeed you do. I know you.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the pleasure of representing your mother on an occasion or more. Do you think you'd be able to sit as a fair and impartial juror with myself being one of the advocates for a litigant in this case?
I do.
Think you could put all that aside and evaluate the case on its own merits?
It's about the facts. It's not about who's in the case.
Very good. Very good. Turning to your questionnaire for a moment. You live in the San Jose area and have been there for about 4 years. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then prior to that, you were living downtown. May I ask where downtown you were living?
I was living in the Carling on Adams Street.
Okay. And I know from personal exposure as well as your questionnaire that you're the executive director for the Jacksonville Bar Association. Do you think that position, your employment, would have any effect on your ability to serve in this case, knowing all of the courtroom personnel, the counsel for the plaintiff? Do you think your role as executive director of the local bar would in any way affect your ability to serve in this case?
I do not.
And is that for the same?
Same answer. It's about the facts. It's not about who the plaintiff or the plaintiff counsel or any of the court personnel. It's purely everything's based on the facts of the case.
Very good. And according to your questionnaire, you're currently married, and it appears your wife works as a Baptist Health Research Institute regulatory coordinator. I gotta ask, in layman's terms, what does she do?
She fills out all of the paperwork for all the research studies that Baptist Hospital through their research institute are doing with different drug trial providers or different events, like with COVID going on. They're putting different projects and test studies together, and they have to file those with their different panels and such through the hospital and nationally.
Good. And according to the questionnaire, it appears that you may have been summoned as a juror in the past, but according to your answer, you've never gotten past the qualifying room.
Correct.
Okay. Is that because you've been excused or just dumb luck?
The last time I believe I had jury duty was I was employed by the public defender, and the case I went to was a criminal case that the defendant was being represented by current colleagues from the public defender, and the judge told me to go ahead and go back to somewhere else, and they didn't send me anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay. When we were talking earlier, and as the court was pointing out that, you know, this is a first, and we're sort of ironing out logistics, and apparently brought to the court's attention and the courthouse personnel's attention that the question regarding prior litigation experience wasn't quite adequate in the event persons have had more than one such exposure to the system. You had raised the issue that you currently have a case pending against your insurance company for a homeowner's claim arising for some Hurricane Irma stuff, correct?
Correct.
Is that case in litigation, or is it still in the claims process?
They settled the claim portion. Now the attorneys are going after dealing with their attorney's fees.
Okay. Is that a filed lawsuit, or is that haggling amongst the parties?
Filed suit.
Okay. Is there anything about, and when they do that, I guess you're the plaintiff in that suit, are you not?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything about being a plaintiff in a pending lawsuit that you think would affect your ability to be a fair and impartial juror in this case where there's a plaintiff seeking a claim of damages against the defendant?
I do not.
Once again, every case is evaluated on its own merits, and whatever you may have going on personally wouldn't affect your ability to sit as a juror in this case?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Shute.
Thank you, sir.
Next, if I could speak with Ms. Soto, juror number 68.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And it appears that you may be appearing from your home as well?
Yes, I am.
And are you comfortable there? Is there anything about that forum that would cause you a problem as serving as a juror in this case?
No, sir.
Okay. And according to your questionnaire, you've lived on the west side of Jacksonville for the past 34 years.
Yes, sir.
And prior to that, you lived in Millington, Tennessee. If I may ask, where is that?
That is south of Memphis. It's a naval base.
Okay. Is that what brought you to Jacksonville ultimately?
Yes, sir.
No, likewise. I probably was brought here before I was born, if you will. And I see that you're a retired, better yet, why don't you tell me, what are you retired from?
I worked for a nursing home on the west side, West Jacksonville Health and Rehab Center. I used to do payroll there, and I retired from there.
How long did you work there?
13 years.
Okay. And how long ago did you retire?
I'm sorry?
How long ago did you retire?
2.5 years.
And you see a lot of ads on TV these days and billboards and what have you, where people are advertising, seeking to file, seeking or letting it be known that attorneys are out there that file suits against nursing homes. Does any of that kind of advertising affect your ability to sit as a juror in a particular case?
I don't think so. No.
Were you exposed to any of the litigation end of the nursing home business when you were working there?
Never.
Okay. And you have 2 grown children, I see?
I do.
And what do they do for a living?
My son is in IT, and he works for a financial institution here in town.
Okay.
And I'm sorry. And my daughter, she's an associate professor at San Diego State University.
On the other coast?
Yes.
What does she teach?
Math education to master degrees and doctorate degrees students.
Doctorate level mathematics?
Yes.
Very bright young lady. And I see that your spouse is retired, is that correct?
Correct.
And what did your spouse do in a prior life?
He served in the Navy for 20 years. And after that, he worked for a manufacturing place here in town on the north side.
What was the name of that company, if I may ask?
Glass Floss.
Glass Loss?
Floss. Glass Floss. They manufacture air conditioning filters.
Very good. And you've never been a party to a lawsuit, nor has anyone else in your family, is that correct?
No, correct.
Okay. So did you get your son who's in the IT business to help set you up for this appearance here today, or?
No, he's working today.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Soto.
You're welcome.
Next up, Your Honor, we have, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly. Is it Michaeline Spanos?
Yes, Michaeline.
Michaeline.
Yes.
And it appears that you're at your residence here this morning?
Yes.
All right. And are you able to hear and see me just fine, or we're good on the tech issues?
Yeah, well, yes, I'm using my daughter's computer right now. My Apple would not, I think Safari doesn't, I guess, I don't know if it supports the Zoom or not, I don't know. So it wasn't working, so, but it's working now.
As many of our panel members with former military exposure would say, it's above my pay grade. I couldn't tell you, so.
Yeah, I was military wife for 20 years, so I understand that.
I get you. Gotta ask, what kind of puppy did you get?
I got a schnoodle. And
a schnauzer mixed with poodle.
Poodle, yes.
Is that one of those hyperallergenic dogs?
Yeah, we had another dog and it died last September, and it went through cancer. And so I haven't had, so it's been a little while. It was a long, drawn out. He had to have so many operations, and now I just got this one, but she's been sick. So I've had to take her to the vet like every day off, because I'm off on Thursdays, and it's been like I've had to take her to the vet. Bought her from a pet store. Never know.
Well, I wish you the best with that, and hopefully your puppy.
Thank you.
On the questionnaire that I've been reviewing here, they have those tech questions, and question 3 in that topic, it states, do you have a room or other quiet location where you could attend court over the internet without distractions of children, pets, and other family members? And you marked no. I'm going to presume that's because of the puppy?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why I think she keeps just barking my daughter's watching her right now for me, so we're taking care of her. Yes.
We'll get you as well as the other panel members back to your lives here in relatively near future. Bear with us.
I'm trying to work from home too, so she, and lucky we have mute, where we can mute, on our system and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been challenging. So
I think this whole last several months has been challenging for everybody.
It has been.
In the event you're selected as a juror, do you think you could get through it, or the distraction such that it would?
I'm sure I can figure it out. I mean, I just don't want her to like go on like a bark, 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 And are we allowed to? Will we be on mute or?
What I anticipate, but the court can answer that, is while you're serving and hearing the arguments of counsel and the presentation of evidence, you're probably on mute unless you need to report something to the court, would be my understanding.
Okay.
That's a long-winded answer of most of the time, yes.
Yes.
And you've lived on the south side of Jacksonville for over 21 years.
Yes, I lived intercoastal.
Okay.
Closer.
The ditch, as we call it, correct?
Yes, I'm over the ditch, yes. Mhm.
Okay. I live across the ditch too.
Mhm.
And prior to that, you were in Pensacola?
We were. My husband was in the military, so we traveled, we've lived like 12, I think I moved like 12 different places before we moved here. So, but I'm originally from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh.
Okay. Like one of our other jurors here this morning. I think it was Miss Pugh, yes.
Yeah.
And Pensacola military, I'm assuming he was a member of the United States Navy.
Navy, yes.
How many people end up in Jacksonville, yours truly included?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're a sales agent for a health insurance company?
I am. I have my nursing degree that I got prior to, well, it's a long story, but before I got divorced. And yeah, so anyways, but I do have my nursing degree. And at this time, I was supposed to be studying for my NCLEX. I was going to try to, and now I'm having to work, to pay all my bills and everything right now. So that's what I'm trying to do. So with all the stuff that happened, with the virus and everything, it's put me, in a bad spot. So I'll work on that.
Have you maintained an active nursing license, or did you let that expire?
Well, I haven't got, I'm done with all my schooling and everything. I have to take my test, my state boards. So
Okay.
that's, yeah,
You're
that's,
working towards that and now.
yeah. So basically I got my insurance license right now for, I'm a contractor, so I'm not actually working for Florida Blue. So, yeah, so that's what I'm doing for this time, at this time.
In the event that it came to light that one of the participants in this lawsuit was also an employee of Florida Blue, would that affect your ability to be fair and impartial?
Oh, no, no, not at all.
Wouldn't affect your.
Such a big company. We don't know each other. I mean, it's such a large company, and I really don't have any ties. I mean, I'm an insurance agent. I sell insurance to a customer. That's all I do for them. So.
Very good. How long have you been a health insurance agent?
Since I started working for Florida Blue in 2018, and I guess it was October. And this is my first year, in my second year selling. So for open enrollment, which is coming up here in a month or two. So.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get full time with them because I'm only a contractor right now.
Okay. Prior to working for Florida Blue, what did you do?
I've done a lot of different things. Okay. I moved around so much, but prior to that, I worked for a construction company here in Jacksonville. Before that, when I was in Pensacola, I worked for Raytheon Aerospace. So, I mean, I've done a lot of different jobs right now just because I'm moving so much.
And what did your husband do for the Navy?
He was a gas turbine engineer. He was on, so he was in the engine room. Yeah, he was a GSM.
Okay. And you've got 2 adult children as well?
I do.
And boy, girl, both?
I have a son who's going to be turning 30. He's a school teacher. He teaches English at Atlantic Coast High School.
Okay. So he's getting ready to go back into the classroom?
He is. Yes. Okay.
Wish him the best with that. And your other child, is that a daughter or son?
My daughter. She's 20 and she is a college student who was in Tallahassee and she's back over here in Jacksonville. She's transferring to FAU down by Boca, but she's going to be staying here because her classes are online. So
yeah. A lot of that going on these days.
Yes.
And I see that you were a party to a prior lawsuit, and you had mentioned this earlier as I was discussing with Mr. Shoup about the limitations on the questionnaire about litigation. I think you had mentioned that there had been some other stuff, and I have a question. You had mentioned it was a divorce case. Were you talking about separate cases or separate issues with an ongoing divorce case?
It was just an ongoing divorce case that turned into like it was a long drawn out divorce, and we had some issues with my home, and my ex-husband not signing documents, and I'm not, it was into a foreclosure, but it got taken, it was stopped. So then I had to file bankruptcy due to it. So I had that on it, and prior to that, I've never had anything.
Okay.
And then one other thing is my daughter had it was a settlement case due to an issue with a orthodontist. So
was she a minor when that occurred?
She was. So I was the trust. Yeah, I'm the trust. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the trust would have technically been the plaintiff, or yourself would have been the plaintiff?
Yeah, and it didn't go through court or anything. We just settled, we just did a settlement. Yeah, it was a very freaky situation that occurred. So
more of like a claim than a lawsuit.
Yeah, it's so confusing to me, to be honest with you. It was just, they had taken all the enamel off her teeth. And she had to so basically it was just money from her teeth to be done in future, so that's basically what it was for.
Anything about any of those experiences that you think would affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this damages trial?
No, sir.
Right. And we've discussed the puppy, and is it a boy or a girl dog?
It's a girl.
Okay. Well, I'm sure the best with her health issues going forward.
And there was a couple other suits, like from my son. I mean, he just got into an issue with like an apartment complex because him and his girlfriend broke up, and they had it together, and you know how that goes, and it just turned into a mess. So, I mean, there's things like it. Do any of those matter? Do I need to tell you about that? I didn't know.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing it, because while we're talking, and at the end, I'll give everyone else an opportunity that, for whatever reason, if we haven't touched on a topic that you think I need to be aware of, go ahead and put it on the table, just as Ms. Spanos has done. Don't know if it matters or not until you hear about it, but would there be anything about your son's experience?
No, just had basically anything that was going on with him was just when he was younger, younger of age, and from the divorce and different things going on. Yes. So,
yeah.
But
okay. Let me return back to one thing. Given your employment status and the need for income and COVID and all of that, would that be of a distraction of such a nature that you would have a hard time devoting your attention to this case and the issues in it, given?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm a contract agent right now, and basically I'm on a quota, and I'm trying to get on full time so I can get some benefits. So it's kind of taken away from what I'm going to get for the month, and they don't really care, to be honest with you. All they do is look at numbers. So it's not going to matter if I'm, off for jury duty or, so yeah, there's strictly numbers there, and yeah.
That's a concern you have, is that you're trying to get on and you need to meet that quota.
I'm going to lose a full day. I'll lose a full day, and I'm losing time right now. And yeah, so basically, and they won't pay me. Yeah. So
I'll do my best to get you back to work.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. Have to do what we have to do.
Thank you. And next, if we could talk to Ms. Tomlinson, juror number 70.
Hello.
Good morning, Ms. Tomlinson. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. You're the other juror that raised their hand in response to the question if anyone knew me, right?
Yes, sir.
You know me, right?
Yes, I do.
Know me pretty well?
Yes.
Okay. Anything about that relationship that would pose a problem for you in serving as a fair and impartial juror in this case?
No.
You
Not
could
at
put
all.
aside whatever that relationship is to evaluate this case on its own merits?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No hesitation about that.
None at all.
Okay. And I see you've been living in the Bartram area for the past 15 months.
Yes.
Being a Jacksonville native, I sounds ignorant, but I think I know where that area of town is, but there's some school names versus some other stuff that it's always been confusing to me. Where is Bartram?
I live in the Bartram Preserves. It's a newer subdivision that is right along, I'm closer to Racetrack Road in that newly developing area. There is like a new Durban Park, all that new, almost like a town center that's going up out there. I'm only 5 minutes from there.
Okay, so getting near St. Johns County.
I'm right on the line of Duval and St. John's, actually. Just like a few blocks south of me is the county line.
Well, lucky you. You're on the right side of the line such that you got summons for jury duty in Duval. How do you like that?
Right.
And prior to that, you lived in the intercoastal area?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you had been candid with the court in response to some questions to the panel regarding litigation history. And although I don't think you answered that you had personally been involved in any litigation, you work as a claims adjuster for an insurance carrier, correct?
Correct.
And those tend to be defendants in personal injury lawsuits, right?
Correct.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
Since 2000, I've been a licensed claims adjuster since 2008. Starting with State Farm back then, and I worked in the catastrophe department, and then I moved over to auto and bodily injury claims from there, handling some litigated claims for State Farm. And in 2014, I moved over, switched from State Farm to go to work for Citizens Property Insurance, and was a litigation manager there. And now I work for Tower Hill, a private carrier out of Gainesville. So I handle litigated claims for them.
And specifically, what is your role for the insurance companies you work with?
When the lawsuit comes into the carrier and we get served with it, then I review it, and they hire separate defense counsel. I review and make recommendations as to whether we should settle, whether there were any issues on the claims handling, or whether we should propound written discovery or set depositions and then defend it to the trial stage.
Okay. Inherent in that occupational role, and correct me if I'm off base, but inherent in that role, you're tasked with trying to either avoid paying money to a claimant or pay as little as possible. Is that a fair assessment?
No, I wouldn't say that. I base all of my recommendations, each case is on its own merits. And if I see that there were mishandlings in the claim handling situation, like if you open a claim and the insurance carrier claim adjuster did something wrong, or let's say they hired an engineer to inspect the damages, and I look at that engineer report, and if I don't agree with that, if it has what I consider weaknesses in there, I'm charged with determining what is a fair amount to pay. What do we owe? If we owe anything, we want to pay what we owe, and not just slash or cut the price. That isn't it. We need to pay what we owe. And if not, if it's just something that isn't warranted and it's not covered under the policy, then we will defend it and fight it, because our opinion, we don't know anything on some of them.
In the course of some litigation, and talking broadly, basically to everyone here, there's what we call economic damages, stuff that generally results in a bill, or you can produce receipts, or hard money that you can show funds were expended on something. Those are called economic damages.
Right.
Lawsuits often entail an aspect of damages called non-economic damages, such things as pain and suffering, mental anguish, and emotional distress. And indeed, those types of damages are at issue in this case. Both are. Do you have an opinion as to whether a pain and suffering damages are an appropriate form of compensation in a claim?
Each case on its own merits, but yes, I mean, that is a lot of the time part of the claim and damages in a bodily injury case.
Okay. Do you have
so I'm not against paying that.
Okay. And that was going to be my next question is, do you have a fundamental or philosophical disagreement with the concept that pain and suffering is an element of damages that should be awarded to a plaintiff if the evidence supports such an award?
I agree with that. If it supports, the evidence supports it, then it's due, and absolutely.
Okay. Likewise, same question with respect to mental anguish and emotional distress, or what we call psychic damages resulting from an incident, that somebody's mental status has been harmed by the effects of whatever may have happened to them. Do you have any opinion, feelings about whether mental anguish or emotional distress should be a component of a damage award for a plaintiff?
No, I don't have any feelings one way or the other. It's all based on the facts of the case. So if the evidence supports it, then that is due and owing, and I don't have a problem paying that.
Do you have let me just ask you the more general stuff. Do you think that there are too many lawsuits in our society these days?
I think that Florida is a very litigious state, and South Florida for property insurance lawsuits, I think there's way too many of those. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Is that opinion or belief or feelings, is that formed from what you do for a living?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that jury awards have become too high?
Too high? Is that what you said?
That juries award too much money to a plaintiff?
No, I think that if a jury is engaged in listening to the case and the evidence, a lot of juries do a fine job at figuring out what the awards should be.
Okay. So you don't have a fundamental problem with letting a jury decide what the value of a case is?
No.
Okay. Are you in support of any legislative efforts to put caps on damages in certain lawsuits?
Regarding property insurance cases specifically, yes, I would have to say that I am supportive of capping some of that.
What would you, what's your belief or feelings as to what should be capped?
Monetarily, or it depends on the policy language and what's allowed to be spelled out in the policy specifically, like water damage, or there are certain limits within an insurance policy that you can pay to have higher limits. Mold, for instance, or water. Some policies cover that, some policies don't. It depends on what you want to pay for.
Okay.
in your premium.
But in terms of capping the damages, what do you think, what or why do you think they need to be capped?
It would be specific to each policy and the property that policy covers.
And that's specific to the policy, not as a general concept.
No, not as a general, no.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tomlinson. If we could talk for a second with juror number 71, Ms. Allen. And thank you, Ms. Allen. Good morning.
Good morning.
And it would appear that you're appearing from your home as well this morning. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And likewise, on the technology questions that were asked in the questionnaire, I see you marked when you initially filled it out that you had never used a platform such as FaceTime, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and those sorts of things to communicate with others. Apparently you have, despite your unfamiliarity with the platform, are doing just fine this morning. Is that a fair assessment?
That is correct.
Well, I'm glad you could get through it. And you live in the Jacksonville Heights area. I've got to ask, where is that?
Oakleaf,
Okay.
kind of between Oakleaf and 103rd. It's in a golfing community.
Very good. Kind of getting down near Clay County, but not quite there yet, right?
Pardon me?
Kind of getting down near Clay County, just not quite there.
No, it's over off 103rd, between 103rd and Oakleaf, Argyle area.
And I see you've been there about 4 years
Yes, sir.
and moved from the Lake Asbury area,
Correct.
which was Clay County.
Yes.
Okay. And according to your questionnaire, you're working in the insurance field as well. Is that right?
Correct.
And what do you do?
Commercial insurance account manager.
Okay. Let me ask some of the same questions of you that I asked of Ms. Tomlinson. Do you think there's too many lawsuits in this day and age?
I do.
Okay. No, as I said, there is no right or wrong answers here this morning, so I'm not trying to lay any traps or any of that. I'm just trying to you know, get a handle on what people's life experiences have brought them to the table with today is all. So don't take any offense by these questions. This is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And do you believe that your employment field has informed your opinions or beliefs with respect to the number of lawsuits, or is that based on a totally separate basis?
No, that's just something totally separate.
From what you're seeing in society?
Correct.
Okay. How about the question as it regards to jury awards in cases? Do you believe that they've gotten too high?
I'm really not familiar with many jury awards, so I'd have to say I have no answer for that.
Okay. Regarding specific aspects of a case, with the economic, the damages, the stuff for which bills and receipts get produced versus the non-economic, pain and suffering, mental anguish, emotional distress, do you have any feelings or opinions as to whether pain and suffering damages are appropriate to be awarded in any particular case, if the evidence supports it?
If the evidence supports it, yes. Otherwise, I have no opinion.
Okay. And in civil cases, as opposed to criminal cases, we have different burdens, what they call burdens of proof. Most people are familiar from TV with the burden of proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. Basically, any doubt you have must be eliminated in order to secure a conviction in a criminal case. This is a civil case where the burdens of proof, and the court will instruct everyone on the law, but generally the burden of proof is what they call a preponderance of evidence, more likely than not. In law school, they tell you roughly 51%. do you take any issue with a plaintiff having to prove his or her case by that burden of proof, more likely than not, as opposed to beyond a reasonable doubt?
No,
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. And if the evidence to you showed that the plaintiff proved her damages case that she was entitled to pain and suffering damages by a preponderance or more likely than not, you would be okay awarding those damages then, correct?
Correct.
And likewise with mental anguish and emotional distress. If the evidence supported it and it was more likely than not that the plaintiff suffered those damages, you would award those damages if you found that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And I see from the questionnaire you're a widow. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
If I may ask, and I don't, as I said, I don't mean to get personal or get into your private affairs, but we all have a job to do. If I can ask, how did your husband pass away?
Cancer.
Sorry to hear that. I lost my father to cancer at a far too young age, and so my sympathies. What kind of cancer, if I may ask?
Colon cancer.
Same source as my loss. Once again, my condolences. How long ago was that?
It was 2008.
And how long have you been in the insurance business?
45 years.
Wow. How many companies over that 45 years?
I basically worked for agencies. We moved to Jacksonville area in 1985. I've worked for 2 companies in that time frame.
Where'd you move to the Jacksonville area from?
New Hampshire.
Okay. I thought I detected a little Northeast accent there somewhere. What did your husband do for a living?
He was in the construction industry doing stadium seats, like the Gator Bowl.
Did he work here locally with the former Gator Bowl and now, I don't even, TIA Bank Field?
We did some of the chairs there, yes, sir.
Okay. You have any of those things laying around the house?
Not anymore.
And you have never been a party to a lawsuit yourself, nor is any of your immediate family. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Then that's no, sir. You have not, and none of your family has not. Is that
correct?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sometimes on a record, things get picked up funny, so you have to clarify a little bit. But thank you very much. Thank you, Miss Allen. Or excuse me. Yeah, Miss Allen. If I could next speak with Mr. Smith, juror number 72.
Yes, sir.
Hey, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You're appearing from home as well this morning?
That's correct.
Very good. And likewise, just as Miss Allen had answered, you apparently have never used one of these interactive platforms, Zoom, FaceTime, Microsoft Teams, to have one of these encounters before, have you?
No, I haven't. And in fact, I've never used the camera before either.
You had never used what?
A camera.
A camera? Oh.
Yeah.
A couple of firsts for you.
Yes, sir.
Well, you look fine, sir. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And obviously, you've overcome your lack of experience with these platforms here this morning by your appearance and your ability to answer questions. Are you having any difficulty?
No, sir.
Okay, good. We're all learning here. This is a first for everyone. And I understand from your questionnaire, you live right down the road from my office in Springfield.
Yes, sir.
How long you lived in that area?
45 years.
Very good. And prior to Springfield, where'd you live?
I was in the U.S. Army for 3 years.
For 3 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was your MOS?
I was in personnel.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Mr. Smith.
I was a personnel specialist.
Okay, the military equivalent of HR, I guess.
Yes, that's correct.
And where did you serve?
Fort Meade, Maryland, and overseas in what was then known as the Panama Canal Zone.
Okay, down in Central America.
Right.
Interesting. Were you exposed at all to the conflict in the 80s down there?
I'm not familiar with what conflict you're referring to.
When we ousted Noriega.
Oh, I was there before that. He was still in charge at that time. In fact, when I was down there, that's when Henry Kissinger was doing negotiations for us to turn the canal over.
Okay, interesting. And I see after your military experience, you worked in the IT field.
Well, I worked in several departments for not just IT. I was a supervisor for 8.5 years, and I worked as a clerk in Medicare B for a year, and I worked in several departments in the company. But then I wound up in IT, and that's where I finished my career.
Okay, and how long have you been retired?
Well, this year will make 5 years.
Okay. I've got to comment on the irony of a former IT professional not having used one of these platforms before. It's go figure, you know.
Well, we had some stuff that we had what was the latest technology at the time at work, but I didn't have it at home.
I think, yeah, everybody's had to embrace this new technology in the last couple of months. So welcome to the fold.
Yes, sir.
And you've never been a party to a lawsuit, and no one in your immediate family has either. Is that correct?
That's correct. No to both ends. No to both ends.
And according to the questionnaire, your prior civilian work life took place at Florida Blue. Is that right?
That's correct. I was there for 37 years.
Okay. If the evidence revealed that one of the participants in this case was an employee of Florida Blue, would that cause any issues with you in terms of being fair and impartial?
No, only if I knew the person.
Okay, and you don't know Miss Griffin personally, do you? No, okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you.
And then if we could speak next to juror number 73, who there she is, Miss Capps. How are you doing?
Great.
Good. It would appear that you're operating from the home as well?
Yes.
Okay. Anything about that forum that would pose any difficulty for you serving as a juror in this case?
No.
Okay. And like some of our other panelists, you haven't used any of these platforms before this experience either, have you?
No, I have not.
It threw me for a loop. You've got the headset on with the microphone. I figured you'd be one of these high-tech or tech-savvy folks.
No, my son suggested it. So, yes.
Well, once again, the youth dragging us older folks
Yes.
into the new millennium. And you live up on Fort George Island, huh?
Yes, on Heckscher Drive.
You see the parade of boats heading out there every weekend, or is that
Every weekend, yes. Yes, I
Okay.
do. It's a great place to be.
is it frustrating for the natives up there with all of that?
No, it's part of the, the scenery. So,
And you've lived up there for 17 years?
yes.
Okay. And prior to that, it appears you resided in the West Side. Where on the West Side did you live?
Between Marietta and White House.
Okay. So out there off I-10.
Yes.
Okay. And it appears from the questionnaire, both you and your husband own Caps Land Management. If you
Yes.
could, tell me what that is.
Mainly it's dirt excavation, a little bit of underground utility site work, but mainly, if a site needs, like say State Road 23 needs materials to build roads, that's what we provide.
All in dirt.
All in dirt. Yes.
And you've got 2 grown children as well?
Yes.
And what do they do for a living? Well, first let me ask, boy, girl, one of each, what do you got?
Oldest is a boy, and he works with the company. He deals with the CAD, mapping out.
Drafting.
Drafting, yes.
Okay.
And then my daughter lives in Atlanta, Georgia. She works with fashion marketing, social platforms. So,
Okay. So she's a real techie.
yes. Yes.
And you had served as a juror on a murder case here in Duval County before.
Yes, 12 years ago.
Okay. And you nor any of your immediate family have ever been in a lawsuit. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything about your prior jury service that would affect your ability to serve as a juror in a civil case?
No, it actually opened my eyes as to how important it is, actually.
Thank you.
So yes, no, I think it's very important to serve. See how
As I share that sentiment, and obviously the court from its remarks does as well. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I may have questions to circle back to, but thank you very much, Ms. Capps.
Okay, thank you.
And then lastly, this morning, we have Ms. Davis. And how are you doing this morning, Ms. Davis? I think you may need to unmute yourself or maybe find a microphone. Your Honor, if we could let the record reflect that Ms. Davis is frozen on. There she is. Okay. You were frozen there for a minute, Ms. Davis, and if I recall correctly, you were the one having a slight connectivity issues earlier. Is that right?
Yes, likely.
Okay. Are you able to hear and see me fine now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Because I can see you well and I can hear you well now fine. It must be the Windows stuff.
Well, I'm at work, I'm at school, and I'm having some technology issues here at the school today.
I had some on my end in my office yesterday, so I can sympathize. And as I said, we're all entering a brave new world with this stuff. So we're going to do the best we can with what we got and do not feel put off or put out by having any of those issues. Indeed, it happened to the court yesterday with a lightning storm. So that's quite all right. And you said you're operating from school, and I see from your questionnaire that you're an elementary school principal. Is that right?
Yes.
What school are you the principal of?
I'm the principal of Rutledge Pearson.
Okay. I have to admit, when you were first set up there in the backdrop of the print, what appeared to be, I was having PTSD flashbacks from my childhood of being in the principal's office. Is that where you were?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I had stark reminders of my childhood upon seeing that. And so how are you doing getting ready to embark on this next school year? Is that a challenge?
Oh, wow. It's a challenge.
Okay.
It's a challenge.
And I've got to ask, everyone has probably been seeing in the news the debates and the crisis that we're living under and kids returning to school. I've got to ask, are in the event you were to be selected as a juror in this case with the school year starting, roughly, about 2 weeks from today, are you able to devote your time and attention to this case? And if you weren't, it's totally understandable given the responsibilities you've got coming forward. But I'm compelled to ask, do you think you'd be able to give us your time and attention given what you've got coming down the pike here in the next 2 weeks?
It will be a challenge, to be just quite honest with you. I'm here at school, can't wait until I can get back out there to prepare for the kids that we will be receiving on the 20th, because I heard number 66 said his daughter is going to be receiving her education at home. Duval County still has a huge number of kids who will be returning back to the school. So when I heard that we may be finished on Monday, I'm like, okay, that sounds good. But in case we're not, I have teachers coming back on campus on Wednesday. So that would be a challenge for me if we run over past Monday afternoon.
As the court alluded to, everyone's best estimate is we'll be done Monday. There's a remote chance that we would leak into Tuesday morning. Would that be a problem for you?
that if we're finished by Tuesday morning, I'm good.
Okay.
I will be good.
Well, I wish you the best going forward with all of the PPE and keeping your teachers, your staff, and those students safe, because I know you got a handful coming at you. I understand that, and God bless you.
It's a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your service as an essential personnel working under all this. I see you live up in the Northside Ocean Way area. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How long you been up there?
I've been on the north side for about 30 years. I've only been into the Ocean Way area for the past 5 years.
And before that, lived in Tallahassee 30 some odd years ago?
College girl.
Okay. Born and raised Leon County, or did you move there for college?
I moved there for college from Panama City.
Okay. Panhandle girl.
Yes.
Okay. How'd you end up in Jacksonville?
An ex-husband.
Okay. Well, I guess we need to thank him for bringing you to the community. You know?
I've enjoyed Jacksonville.
Well, I'm glad. How long you been in the education game?
30 years.
Okay. So ever since you got here?
Ever since I got here.
Right out of college, you get an education degree?
I did.
Okay. Put
And
that
then a
right.
master's.
Put that degree right to work.
Yes.
Okay. Did you climb the ranks, start as a teacher, and work your way up?
Started as a teacher, worked my way up to an assistant principal,
When did
and
that
then a
take?
principal. And I've been many things here in the district. I've been a regional superintendent. I've been executive director, and those positions just supervise other schools. So currently I'm a master principal. So I'm the principal of Rutledge Pearson, but I also supervise 3 other schools.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You are busy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You sure you got time to devote to this case?
As long as we're finished by Tuesday morning.
Okay. All right. When did you leave the classroom to take on those administrative positions? How many years ago did that take place?
Oh, I've been bouncing back and forth for the past probably 15 years.
Okay. And you've served as a juror before as well, according to the questionnaire. Is that right?
I have, but I couldn't remember what type of case.
I noted that. You remember if it was criminal or civil?
Can't, which is so weird because I've always prided myself on my memory. I just can't.
I must confess, my memory ain't what it used to be either. So
It's those birthdays. It's those birthdays we continue to have.
You do remember reaching a verdict in that case, however.
We reached a verdict, yes.
You just don't remember what it was about.
I see the guys, I think it was a criminal case.
Okay. Starting to come back remotely.
Yes.
And you were a party in a personal injury lawsuit yourself, and it would appear that you were the defendant in that case. Is that right?
Yes.
What was
Yes.
the nature of the personal injury action? Was it an auto accident, slip and fall? What kind of case was it?
Auto accident, Atlanta, Georgia, black ice, sliding head on. I was in a little Datsun B210. They were in the biggest U-Haul truck you could ever rent, and they claimed damages.
My mother, God rest her soul, she's back in Ireland, but she once upon a time owned a Datsun B210. So by the make and model of the car, this had to be something circa 70s, early 80s?
Yes. Maybe, I think it was 78. I think it was 78.
Okay. Anything about that experience as a defendant in a personal injury lawsuit that would affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case, where we're seeking damages from a defendant?
No, not at all.
Okay. You could put whatever that happened 40 some odd years ago aside and evaluate this case on its own merits?
Yes.
What were you doing up in Atlanta?
Just, I had a friends there and I thought I wanted to live there. I was only there for 4 months.
Okay.
didn't care as much for it. To live there and to visit was quite different for me. So I didn't hang around there too long. I moved back to Tallahassee, got back in college, graduated, and life started.
I asked because I spent 5 years in my educational background up there. That's why I asked. Okay.
Mr. Kaczurgas, we're at close to noon, I think maybe a minute or two before.
I think I've done what I needed to do. That was the last juror and where we're at. And so I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, very good then. Ladies and gentlemen of the prospective jury panel, you all have been a tremendous group this morning. You have helped us immensely by being part of this process today. I cannot tell you whether you're going to be on the final jury that's going to serve on Monday. As I said earlier, we have one more panel that's coming immediately after yours that will begin promptly in a few minutes. And so because you're not officially discharged from your service as a juror, I have to treat you the same way I would if we were taking a recess in trial and you were all part of the jury. So you have to abide by all those rules that I gave you this morning before we got started with Mr. Kaczurgas' questions. So you have to follow all those rules. Sometime later today, hopefully by mid-afternoon or so, you'll get an email that's going to be one of two things. That email is going to tell you that either that you were selected as one of our 8 jurors, and you're going to have detailed instructions to create your own Zoom login. You'll be given a virtual background for the trial that'll look like a courtroom. You'll be told to join us at 9 a.m. on Monday morning for the trial. Or, in the alternative, you will get an email telling you that you were not selected, and it'll give you detailed instructions to obtain a return to work letter. So if you need an excuse for your employer, you can get that. Or if you need an excuse for your school, if you're a student, or if you need something in writing to explain to your significant other where you've been all morning today, you can have that in writing from the clerk's office. And so the other thing that's going to happen if you were not selected to serve on this jury is you'll also have very detailed instructions on how to respond to a survey. That survey was prepared by the Florida Supreme Court, and we really need your input because this is a pilot program. This is a project. We are one of 5 circuits to receive this pilot program. This program ends October 2nd, and all the information we've gathered from all of our work and all of your work will be considered by the Florida Supreme Court in deciding where to go in the future with the use of technology in trials. So I really need you, when you get that email, to click on that link. It will be a link, and answer all of those survey questions. Very important for us going forward. The other thing is, because you still are on our jury, we don't know if you're going to be on the final jury or not. Do not do any research about this case. Do not go to any of the scene or location described in the description of the case. Don't attempt to do any research about the people or places involved in this case. Don't attempt to discuss this case with anyone through electronic devices or anyone in your household, coworkers, and so forth. Also, if you see us, when I say us, I mean the court personnel, myself, Mr. Kaczurgas, his client, the bailiffs, the clerks, the court reporter, anyone at all involved in this case, a special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, that's whether that's electronic through Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or whether that's in person at a store or at recreational activity or some place of business between now and Monday, we're going to ignore you. So we're not going to talk to you. That's not because we're rude, but we cannot address you or have contact with you or communicate with you unless it's here in this courtroom on the record in front of the court reporter and everyone else. So please be very mindful of that. Also, you're going to have people asking you questions. You may have friends, family, neighbors, coworkers who are going to say, hey, I read a news story about this case that you're involved, are you on that case? And all this kind of stuff. You cannot talk to them about the case until you know that you're discharged from the jury, until you get our email officially telling you that you're not on our jury. You can't discuss this with anyone. And you also can't go and start looking at news articles about this till you know you're not on the jury. And so if someone asks you before you find out one way or the other, you cannot tell them anything. You can't discuss it at all. You can blame me, blame the judge for that. But you are allowed to tell them about logistics. Just say you're waiting to find out if you're going to be on the jury. And if you are, you'll have to come back to the remote courtroom on Monday morning at 9 a.m. And it could go into the following morning, but more likely not. It'll be finished on Monday. You're allowed to tell them about scheduling, but don't talk about the case or anything about the case or about your experience as a remote juror or about how we're doing things in here. And so just be very mindful of that. And obviously don't attempt to do any research in the media about what's taking place in here, because there is lots of news coverage about what we're doing here. So please don't look at that at all until you know that you're not on the jury. With that being said, I'll ask our special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, if there's anything further we need to add for you before you leave today.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, and then also I'll ask our remote bailiffs, Mr. Muse, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Estelila, if there's anything further that I need to add before they leave the remote courtroom.
No, Your Honor, nothing further.
All right, very good. And so, ladies and gentlemen of our remote prospective jury, you are in recess until you find out from us whether or not you're going to be serving on this jury. If you are excused, then your service will be completed. If you are selected, you'll be back with us on Monday morning at 9 a.m., which will be a very great day and exciting day for all of us. And so in the event I don't see you again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out this morning to spend these moments and these minutes and time with me this morning. The entire morning has been a pleasure and honor for me and a privilege to spend with you today. I've totally enjoyed the process. I totally enjoyed being back to doing jury trials again, even if they're remote. And so because of you, the sounds of freedom are ringing in the Duval County Courthouse, even though it's remote. And for that, the court and the participants all extend our great gratitude to you. So I hope you have a great rest of the day and a great weekend ahead. And please take care and stay safe. Thank you. You can now leave the remote courtroom. And we will be in recess now to assemble the next jury for 15 minutes. And so the PowerPoint slide will go up on the screen with a countdown clock for 15 minutes. So we're in a brief recess for 15 minutes, get the other jury ready to come into court.